Chapter 648. His sharp spiritual power had already traversed thousands of meters and sensed the existence of an intercontinental ballistic missile. Let's go. At this moment, Zhang Qianlei's body trembled as he activated his soul energy. Swoosh, swoosh. Disposable flying swords shot up into the sky like rockets, piercing through the air. Kaboom, kaboom. A series of explosions suddenly sounded above Sidoni's North Bay. Giant black and red flowers seemed to have bloomed in the sky. The flames spread for more than a dozen kilometers. Oh no! Our intercontinental ballistic missiles didn't even enter Sidoni's territory. They exploded on the high seas. Almost at the same time. Hearing such a report, Defense Minister David and the many staff officers and commanders could not help but be shocked. Many generals shouted in disbelief. When did Sidoni have such advanced weapons? How is this possible? Minister, do we continue to attack? We don't have many intercontinental ballistic missiles left. A general asked bitterly. Defense Minister David's body trembled slightly. His face was solemn as he remained silent. Continue. Fire as many as you have. A general of the Eagle faction shouted angrily. Also use weapons of mass destruction on Kong Techu. Send out the bombers. I'm afraid not. He has already entered the downtown area of Paris. This will cause a lot of casualties. At this time, a general said with an ashen face. What? So fast? Minister David was dumbfounded as he slumped in his chair. It must be noted that the defense outside the city of Paris was the most elite and powerful. The Labrador Air Defense Zone, the 4th Air Mobile Brigade, the 6th Armored Brigade and 3 mechanized brigades. There were thousands of people, missiles, cannons, fighter jets, tanks, helicopters. The president is still in the Élysée Palace. Minister David screamed as if he had just woken up from a dream. Send a tank battalion to protect the president and the cabinet members as they move to the Labrador Air Defense Zone. Under Jiang Tian's powerful attacks, the fighter jets burst into flames and exploded one after another. The steel torrent formed by tanks and armored vehicles was easily destroyed by his sword. The cannons couldn't even touch him. At this time, Jiang Tian had already entered the downtown area of Paris. Didn't you want a transport ship? Take it back. He stepped into the air and crossed a distance of several kilometers. When he arrived above the Louvre, he patted the sky-devouring demonic gourd at his waist. Rumble. A trash-laden transport ship that was dozens of meters long suddenly appeared in the sky. Then, under Jiang Tian's urging, it whizzed down toward the Louvre from several hundred meters above. The transport ship, which weighed hundreds of tons, instantly smashed the marble Louvre Museum into pieces. The exquisite Roman columns were broken into several sections and shot out in all directions. The broken walls that were full of carvings shot out dozens of meters away. The transparent pyramid at the entrance turned into a pile of scrap metal. In less than a minute, this exquisite palace with a long history of 800 years turned into ruins. Flames soared into the sky and smoke billowed. Among them were countless treasures. Whether it was the statue of Venus, the Mona Lisa, or even the statue of the Goddess of Victory, a total of 400,000 priceless treasures were all destroyed. None of the crew members on the ship survived. All of them had broken bones and tendons, turning into a pile of flesh and blood. Rumble. The earth quaked and the mountains shook. The citizens of Paris within a few kilometers felt a clear tremor as if there was a major earthquake. Did that devil attack Paris? Oh my God. This explosion is terrifying. They were as silent as cicadas in winter. Their faces were pale and they were panicking. The Louvre Museum is destroyed. The treasure of our French civilization. Some people even burst into tears as if they had lost their parents. Jiang Tian took a second step and came to the top of the Arc de Triomphe. He patted the sky-devouring magic gourd and another transport ship that was hundreds of meters long appeared in the sky. Let's hit a home run. After that, Jiang Tian waved his hand again, and the giant transport ship was like a bowling ball that was thrown out, rolling close to the ground. Rumble. The Arc de Triomphe, which was built with giant stones and exquisitely carved, was 50 meters high and 22 meters thick. It was grand and magnificent, like the backbone of the French nation, standing for hundreds of years without falling. The door inherited the history of Paris. The iron wall reliefs told of the vicissitudes of life and endless glory. But under the violent bombardment of the transport ship, The Arc de Triomphe crumbled in an instant as if it was made of tofu. The gorgeous reliefs shattered and turned into broken stones. They were then drowned by the rubbish and waste from the transport ship, never to appear in the world again. Oh my God. He destroyed the Arc de Triomphe. He's a devil. A devil. Sidonie is possessed. Seeing this scene, the citizens of Paris were filled with indignation and hatred. This was the national treasure which carried too much meaning and symbolized a long history of war. The four themed murals represented war, victory, peace, and resistance. Now that it was destroyed, their hearts were bleeding. On the third step, Zhang Tian came to the top of the Eiffel Tower. Break. Zhang Tian waved his fingers and 100-meter-long Gengjin soldier swept out. The 300-meter-tall Eiffel Tower, under Zhang Tian's blade, first made an ear-piercing sound of steel twisting and friction, then split into two and smashed to the left and right. Boom. The earth trembled, the towering French parasol tree was smashed to the ground, and the stone bridge under the Eiffel Tower was smashed into two. This was a shocking scene. Many Parisian citizens who witnessed it would remember it for the rest of their lives. Every time they thought about it, their hearts would bleed. The Eiffel Tower was a landmark of Paris. The Louvre represented the prosperous culture of France during the Renaissance, and the Eiffel Tower could be said to be the symbol of France during the Industrial Revolution. It was built using more than 1,500 giant prefabricated steel beams, 1.5 million rivets, and more than 10,000 steel castings with a total weight of more than 7,000 tons. It constantly showed the strong industrial production capacity of France during the early stages of capitalism. It showed the strange imagination, the magnificent creativity, the whimsical romance, the extraordinary artistic taste, and the courage to innovate. Since the beginning of the new century, 5 million tourists from all over the world would visit this magnificent building every year. Since it was built, more than 250 million people had visited. But now, the Eiffel Tower that carried 100 years of glory, the crystallization of the sweat and blood of countless skilled craftsmen, had collapsed and become a pile of scrap metal. This was like a joke. Oh God, the Eiffel Tower is destroyed too. This is the eternal symbol of Paris. Oh God. This demon should go to hell. Damn it. Countless witnesses were trembling, screaming, crying, and cursing with hatred. Is Paris still Paris without the Eiffel Tower? A poet laughed hysterically and committed suicide by swallowing cyanide not far from the Eiffel Tower. He's flying. Those huge ships, where did he put them before? These huge transport ships weigh dozens of tons. How did he control them? Is he really a demon, or a god? Sidonie is possessed. This is the most terrifying demon in history, more terrifying than vampires and werewolves. But more people were afraid of the unknown. Many people were so scared that they knelt on the ground, trembling and begging Zhang Tian not to kill them. Even the soldiers guarding this area were trembling and could not hold their guns steadily. The bullets fired by a few soldiers could not hurt Zhang Tian at all. The Arc de Triomphe and the Eiffel Tower, the iconic buildings of Paris and the entire France, were destroyed. Zhang Tian took the fourth step. The Palace of Versailles, the royal castle and gardens that had been used as the palace from Louis XIV to the French Revolution, was destroyed by the garbage ship. The fire soared into the sky and turned into ruins. Although the firefighters arrived in time, only ruins were left. The fifth step. Notre Dame de Paris. Even the representative of the Gothic architecture, which was made famous by the famous French Romantic writer Hugo, was not spared from the disaster. The church was destroyed by the huge garbage ship and was razed to the ground in a few minutes. Zhang Tian took 8 steps in the sky and attacked 8 times. Each attack was ruthless and had the power to destroy the world. The transport ships and various magic weapons and talismans were thrown, and an iconic building was destroyed. In the blink of an eye, Paris was in a sea of fire. These were all places of interest in France. There were so many places on fire that the adequate firefighting force in the city of Paris was not enough. The Seine River was about to be drained. It's time to go to the Élysée Palace. After blowing up a few tanks that were firing, Zhang Tian took the 9th step and flew toward the Élysée Palace that represented the highest authority in France. At the same time, the Élysée Palace. Several French-made AMX-30 main battle tanks, led by the guards, rumbled loudly. The tracks pressed against the luxurious and classical marble steps in front of the Élysée Palace. The corners of the steps cracked slightly. The tank's overly wide body rubbed against the Roman pillars at the entrance of the palace, making ear-piercing creaking sounds and leaving mottled scars. The tank squeezed through, causing a few shocking cracks to appear on the Roman pillars. Finally, they arrived at the main entrance of the Élysée Palace. The tank door opened to welcome President Xianxia and the senior cabinet officials. Damn it, David. Why do we have to start another war? Paris is done for, France is done for, we're going to be sinners in history. At this time, President Xianxia was as panicked as an ant on a hot pan. Under the escort of the presidential guards, he hurried toward the tank outside the door. He was as scared as a rabbit facing a tiger. He trembled, his face was pale and his head was covered in cold sweat. He even lost one of his leather shoes. He no longer had his usual elegant demeanor. He was covered in dust and was in a sorry state. Just as Xianxia took one step into the tank, whoosh! An endless golden light cut through the night sky like a comet. He's here. President Xianxia was stunned. Many cabinet members and media reporters raised their heads and looked at the golden light in the sky as if they had seen a ghost. Chapter 649. The golden light paused for a moment. A domineering figure suddenly appeared in the sky above the Élysée Palace, standing in the air. Xianxia, where do you think you're going? I'm here to return the garbage ship to you. A voice that resounded through heaven and earth, containing a monstrous pressure, came crashing down like Mount Tai. Many people trembled, their faces turned pale and they trembled crazily. Some officers even knelt on the ground in shock. There really is a God. He can fly without any external help. I'm so lucky. I can actually shoot a high-definition video. I'm afraid I'll win the Pulitzer Prize next year. But there were a few reporters stationed here who were ecstatic, holding their cameras and capturing this earth-shattering scene. Your Excellency Kongti. I want to stop the war, but the speaker won't listen to my orders. President Xianxia was so scared that his legs went weak and he couldn't even stand properly. He begged with a sobbing tone, I'm innocent, please don't kill me. When an avalanche happens, no snowflake is innocent. Jiang Tian sneered. France is just a small place, but you're arrogant and condescending. You've been polluting our territorial waters for several years and hired mercenaries to kill our civilians. I've given you a chance to correct your mistakes, but you and the cabinet didn't cherish it. You even threatened to invade my territory and occupy Sidonie. Jiang Tian's demonic dragon roar contained terrifying spiritual energy. Every word was sonorous like a thunderclap. People's ears were ringing and they were dizzy and trembling. Their legs were as weak as noodles and they couldn't support themselves. But how can I be provoked by ants like you? In the end, Jiang Tian glared, raised his eyebrows and shouted. You are unforgivable. Kneel. At this moment, the power of the demonic dragon roar erupted to the extreme. The ground within a radius of 7 to 8 miles trembled violently, as if the space was about to collapse. The surrounding buildings, countless glass windows, countless trees. Under Jiang Tian's shout, they were all shattered into pieces, fluttering in the air like butterflies. An unprecedentedly terrifying pressure came crashing down like Mount Tai, suppressing the Élysée Palace. Under this terrifying pressure, Yi Zichen was stunned. Whether it was the battle-hardened elite soldiers, the ruthless and tenacious officials and politicians, or even President Xianxia himself, there were more than 1,000 of them. None of them could bear it. They all knelt on the ground, some even fainted. As for the BBC reporter, before he fainted, he used his camera to record the scene that would forever be recorded in history. A young Chinese man stood in the air, looking down at the Élysée Palace as if he were a god standing on the heavens. At his feet, the French president knelt, the cabinet ministers bowed their heads, and all the soldiers with modern weapons prostrated themselves on the ground. It seemed to symbolize that the Élysée Palace and all of France were under his feet. At this moment, Jiang Tian's suppression of France had far-reaching effects. Although the truth was temporarily concealed by the secular regime, it was still revealed to the world many years later. As a result, hundreds of years later, it was still remembered and often mentioned by people. That moment marked the beginning of the 2,000 years of civilization and order of mankind being overturned. France, one of the 5 great countries in the world, has bowed down to a human. This marks the first time that cultivators have surfaced and openly challenged the authority of a great country. But this is also a sign of the recovery of spirit energy. Many years later, powerhouses have risen, and the great era of cultivation has arrived. Mankind has gradually stepped into an era where technology and cultivation coexist. Many years later, the world's leading expert in the history of cultivation, Peter Chin, wrote in the foreword of An Overview of Global Cultivation Civilization. He was not stingy with his praise. At this moment, President Xianxia was almost kneeling on the ground. Humiliation, anger, unwillingness, and fear, many emotions flashed across his face one after another, but in the end they all turned into endless sighs. He lowered his head and said in a trembling voice, "Your Excellency Kong Techu, we have lost this war. We request a truce and will agree to all your conditions." "Good. Remember your words. However, I still have to return the trash to you." Jiang Tian sneered and patted the red-skinned small gourd on his waist. A garbage ship broke through the air and crashed down, smashing the Élysée Palace into ruins. Then Jiang Tian could not be bothered to look at the crowd. With his hands behind his back, he walked away lazily. At this moment, Hera was filled with holy light. She rose into the air and flew to Jiang Tian's side. She did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Your Excellency Kong Techu, don't you think you have destroyed too many civilizations' legacies this time?" She sighed with regret. The Louvre, the Palace of Versailles, Notre Dame de Paris, and every sculpture and oil painting in them. They are all treasures of civilization, treasures that cannot be duplicated. Jiang Tian landed and walked. He had regained his ordinary appearance. He was like a gentle boy next door, no longer domineering and murderous. Hearing this, he said calmly, "Hera, you think I was too heavy-handed, right? But I think the greatest respect for the enemy is to spare no effort to destroy them. This is a war. Hera, you have to remember that in war you lose your humanity and lose part of yourself. If you lose your bestial nature, you might lose everything. If I hadn't been ruthless and intimidated those rascals, the one to be destroyed might have been Sidonie. You should know that France has the strength to do so." "Mr. Jiang, what you said makes sense. I have learned my lesson." Hera bowed slightly and said humbly, "In your opinion, the oil paintings, sculptures, and architecture that shone brightly during the Renaissance in France are civilizations?" A hint of vicissitudes flashed in Jiang Tian's eyes as he said leisurely, "But in my opinion, Sidonie's primitive dance, rustic stone tools, and pottery, as well as their unique wine-making techniques, are civilizations as important as the Louvre. Their fruit wine is really delicious. I'll give you some later. Why should France be able to destroy Sidonie? Relying on military power? Then I'm sorry. With me around, Sidonie will become a powerhouse. Sometimes I really suspect that you're like the legends, an alien from across the sea of stars or an old monster reborn." Hera's gentle and elegant face was filled with shock. After a slight pause, a strange light flashed in her clear eyes. She didn't expect Jiang Tian's thoughts to be so profound. He was much more charming than the dead Zeus. "Hera, I give time to civilization, but I don't give time to civilization." Jiang Tian did not comment. He just smiled and said lightly, "That's right. I'm creating a brand new civilization system for Sidonie, a civilization with more vitality and stronger immunity, containing endless possibilities and imagination. And some arrogant civilizations are digging their own graves. Then don't give them any more time." At this moment, the surrounding smoke billowed. Jiang Tian, who was leisurely strolling through the ruins, gave off a strange sense of quiet beauty. He was like a wise man who could see through the past, present, and future. He was like a true god who stood at the pinnacle of a universal civilization. This feeling lingered. Hera was shocked. She said, "Mr. Jiang, are you really trying to overturn the existing civilization order?" "I won't stay in this world for too long, but I'll leave behind some seeds of cultivation civilization." Jiang Tian shook his head and smiled. "You're talking too far. It's actually very simple. France wants to destroy my progress. Unfortunately, I can only destroy them. You won't stay for too long." "You mean?" Hera thought of a possibility, and her heart was in turmoil. "However, Hera, the reason why the Rothschild family can stand for hundreds of years without falling is probably because they have some mysterious power behind them, right?" Jiang Tian didn't answer this question. Instead, he looked at Hera and said with a faint smile. Hera's long eyelashes fluttered. She lowered her eyelids and tucked a strand of her golden hair behind her ear. She revealed a moment of gentleness that could move one's soul. She laughed bitterly. It seems that I can't hide anything from the wise Kong Techu. Well, I'll tell you. The Rothschild family supports an Earl-level blood breed, which is a vampire. An Earl-level blood breed? You dare to challenge me with just a vampire bat? Jiang Tian's eyes were full of disdain. In his opinion, only first-generation vampires like the Blood Ancestor were qualified to fight with him. As for the Earl level, it was probably only at the peak of the immortal state. However, he could destroy it with one strike. This vampire named Black Earl Barter was very famous in the Middle Ages, during the French Revolution and during the Napoleonic Wars. He knew black magic and spread the plague and the Black Death. Wherever he went, there would be corpses everywhere. He even massacred several cities in small countries like Norway. In the Middle Ages, Bartle controlled almost half of the French noble class. Many nobles and even members of the royal family were his followers. They believed that worshipping him would make them immortal, and that they would obtain mysterious power if they received the magic blood he gave them. But under the siege of the Holy See, the Palace of Gods and the United States, the vampires gradually declined and struggled at death's door. In the end, the Gathering of Darkness represented the werewolves, the blood breed, and the witches. They reached an agreement with the Holy See and the secular government. The blood breed and other forces hid themselves and would no longer disturb the secular order. However, the secular government also had to stop hunting them down and give them a way out. Gathering of Darkness? Jiang Tian frowned. He had heard of this name before, but he didn't know the details. In the Middle Ages, the werewolves, the blood breed, the witches, the black magicians, and the alchemists also had a long war with each other. Hera explained with a smile. But later, due to the suppression of the Holy See, they shook hands and made peace. Several first-generation vampires, the Wolf Ancestor, the Witch God, and other powerful figures formed the Gathering of Darkness to resist the siege of the Holy See and the secular army. The Gathering of Darkness had many existences beyond the immortal state. For a long time, their strength was enough to contend with the Holy See. Does the Gathering of Darkness still exist? Jiang Tian's eyes burned as he looked at Hera. Chapter 650. Hera looked down and evaded his gaze. Then she raised her eyebrows and laughed mockingly. I think this organization has already perished. Even with the huge intelligence network of the Palace of Gods and MI6, they still can't find any information. Although Dark Duke Barter is powerful, he can't go against the tide of history and can only hide. He chose to protect the Rothschild family, and the Luo family provided them with funds and materials as well as blood slaves. Oh, no wonder the Rothschild family didn't implement a shareholding system and didn't bring in strategic investors. Jiang Tian had a hint of understanding in his heart as he mumbled to himself. He muttered to himself, because it's impossible to explain the large expenditure and expenses to the vampires to most shareholders. And the Rothschild family is so conservative and has no ambition. It's already against common sense for them to be able to stand for 200 years without collapsing. Can only be explained by a powerful force backing them. In Wuxia, the strongest force in the secular world was undoubtedly the Huaxiaolong formation. But Wuxia still had the existence of semi-hidden sects and hidden sections. It was said that there were many old monsters above the deity state. Then the West should also have a hidden force outside of the Palace of Gods. Otherwise, the East and West would have long been out of balance. Your Excellency Kong Techu, I think you should get rid of the Rothschild family and the Dark Duke Barter behind them. Hera suggested earnestly. Holy light spread out and she presented a map with a mark with both hands. Rose Castle, more than 10 kilometers north of Paris. It's Barter's residence. Hera, you're not helping me. Jiang Tian didn't take the map. Instead, he put his hands behind his back and said meaningfully, Your Excellency, what do you mean? Hera was shocked. Jiang Tian said with a faint smile, You want me to help you get rid of the blood breed, or make me too tired to deal with the blood breed and have no time to deal with the Palace of Gods and the Holy See, right? She didn't expect Jiang Tian to have already seen through everything. In that instant, Queen of Heaven Hera was so shocked that her face was as white as paper. Her entire body was drenched in sweat, and her delicate body was trembling slightly. She slowly retracted the map and put on her guard. Forcing a smile, she said, Your Excellency Kong Techu, you've misunderstood me. If you think that my kind suggestion is a conspiracy, then I take back my words. No matter what you think, I will get rid of them. Jiang Tian took the map, then slapped her perky buttocks fiercely and laughed loudly. Be it the Covenant of Darkness, the Hall of Gods, or even the Holy See, none of them are worthy of being my opponent. Sir Kong Techu, Hera has always respected you. How could you take advantage of me like this? Hera's charming face was flushed red, and her beautiful eyes were filled with mist. She seemed to be both angry and happy as she tenderly shouted. You should have a lifespan of 200 years, right? I didn't expect you to maintain it so well. You must be very lonely now that Zeus is dead. Jiang Tian let out a naughty laugh and soared into the sky, transforming into a golden stream of light that shot off into the distance like a bolt of lightning. My Queen of Heaven is just a title. It has nothing to do with Zeus. Hera sighed faintly, suppressing the intoxicating feeling that rose in her entire body. Stepping on a holy light, she chased after Jiang Tian. When Jiang Tian had just entered Paris. In the northern suburbs of Paris, the Rose Castle was shrouded in black clouds. It looked very old and gave off a terrifying and sinister feeling. The rusty iron gates were tightly shut and unknown vines crawled all over them. In the courtyard, the roses were withered and unknown shrubs and weeds were waist-high. Stray cats were running around like arrows and densely packed bats were flying everywhere. A black cat was squatting on the windowsill with a sparrow in its mouth, chewing noisily. Its golden pupils had shrunk to the size of needles, giving off a bloodthirsty smell. Around the courtyard, the bare branches of the French parasol tree pierced into the sky like ghost claws. On the branches, crows were squatting densely, their demonic eyes vigilantly looking at the night sky. Whoosh! A few civilian helicopters broke the silence, piercing through the rolling black clouds and circling over like stray dogs. The helicopters landed on the empty space in the courtyard. The cabin door opened, and under the protection of many bodyguards, a group of Rothschild family members in luxurious clothes hurried out. Dad, it's so scary here. Why are there so many crows? I'm shivering all over. The one complaining was Nathan's favorite youngest daughter, Annaline. She had a delicate oval face and her exquisite makeup was flawless. She wore an evening gown that accentuated her tall and perfect figure. Her long blonde hair was draped over her shoulders, and she wore an exquisite diamond-studded crown on her head. On her jade-like neck, she wore a heart-of-the-ocean blue diamond necklace, which was worth at least 100 million euros. On her feet was a pair of red suede heels custom-made for her by the chief designer of Gucci. She was like a bright moon, a natural beauty, like a high and mighty princess. Annaline was very beautiful, but she was definitely not a useless face. Her family's Annaline Cosmetics and Jones jewelry, which were worth hundreds of millions of euros, were all created by her. These two brands were very influential in the world and they were now on par with many well-known luxury brands in Europe. At this moment, being chased away like a stray dog, she said indignantly, that Kong Techu can't do anything to us. He has to abide by international law. Dad, we should go abroad at this time. What's the use of coming here? Raymond beat his chest and stamped his feet anxiously. He had never thought that Kong Techu would actually conquer Paris and make the entire France surrender. Until now he still felt that it was unreal. Everything was like a nightmare, an absurd nightmare. One person challenging the army of a country, one of the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council France, was like a legend. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would have kicked anyone who told him this and scolded, "Bullshit. Shut up. If it wasn't for you causing trouble in Sidonie, we wouldn't have become stray dogs now." Nathan had an evil appearance and his cold gaze could kill. He raised his hand and slapped Raymond hard on the face. Slap. Raymond's nose was bleeding from the slap. He staggered and almost fell to the ground. Nathan was furious. He did not expect Raymond to provoke Kong Techu to be so powerful. If it wasn't for his trump card, it was very likely that today would be the day of the Rothschild family's destruction. 300 years of foundation destroyed in a day. Raymond was dizzy from the slap. His head was buzzing and he was stunned. He covered his face and did not dare to speak. In fact, the members of the Rothschild family did not understand why Nathan brought everyone to this place. But no one dared to question Nathan's authority. They could only look at each other, shake their heads and sigh. Only James seemed to have thought of something. His eyes were excited. Father could not be summoning that, right? Nathan ignored Raymond and the others. He walked quickly to a round marble altar in the courtyard facing the door and knelt down respectfully at the door of the castle. This castle had not been cleaned for many years. It was dirty. The round altar was full of rotten leaves and bird droppings. But Nathan did not hesitate to kneel down and kowtow. His forehead touched the bird droppings. Seeing this scene, Anna was shocked and confused. Her clear eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Her father was someone who could be on the same level as President Xianxia. What kind of important person could make him kneel down so respectfully? At this moment, Mr. Nathan took out a knife and cut his palm. He raised his bleeding hands and kowtowed continuously. Then, ignoring the intense pain, he pressed his hands on the grooves on the altar and said loudly with a pious expression, "I'm sorry." With a face full of reverence, he shouted, "Respected blood god Barter, your loyal servant little Nathan of the Rothschild family, begs for your help." Blood god Barter? Our family is actually the servant of blood god Barter? Anna was shocked and couldn't believe it. She had heard too many legends about Barter since she was a child. In these legends, Barter was the god who guarded France. Legends said that he was the son of the French Marshal Guilles in the 100 Years' War and had fought side by side with Joan of Arc. Later, he and his father studied alchemy together and discovered the power of blood. After killing more than 3,000 British prisoners, he finally summoned the descendant of the first vampire, Cain. He condensed the immortal body of the blood breed and made a great contribution to repelling the British army. The blood in Nathan's palm kept flowing and poured into the hexagram in various beautiful patterns on the marble altar. The blood seemed to be alive as it flowed and trembled in the grooves of the hexagram. It changed in an instant and emitted an incomparably magnificent red light that enveloped him. At this moment, everyone could clearly feel that a mysterious and strange power had awakened or been activated. Just as everyone was bewildered, a dazzling blood-red light shot over from afar. That blood light was dozens of meters long and was extremely sharp. It was like a blood blade that cut through the sky and illuminated half of the sky red. The blood light was as sharp as a blade, and its wide tail was as vast as the sea. It was as if it was going to sweep through the 9 heavens. Wherever it passed, tall buildings crumbled and corpses were wrapped in the bloody light one after another. The blood light was surging and the murderous aura was monstrous. There were hundreds of corpses, and even the wreckage of tanks and armored vehicles were floating in the blood light. Lord Blood God is here. Nathan was ecstatic as if he had seen a believer who had seen a god. He was so excited that his whole body trembled and tears flowed down his face as he kowtowed repeatedly. In the past, there was a rumor that a count-level blood breed could repel an army of tens of thousands in a battle. I didn't believe it before, but now I believe it. Behind Nathan, a mercenary powerhouse in a military uniform looked at the sky with emotion and bitterness in his mouth. Chapter 651. The king of mercenaries was terrified and his body couldn't help but tremble. There were such powerful people lurking in the dark. If they all came out, the world would be in chaos. Not to mention him, all the members of the Rothschild family were pale and horrified. They couldn't help but want to turn around and run. This destructive power seemed to be stronger than the legendary Kong Techu. One person could destroy a city. Annalyn felt that her legs were soft and her body was wet as if she was about to pee. The torrential blood-red light arrived above the ancient castle. Then it suddenly converged and disappeared into thin air. "My people, come in." At the same time, the gate of the castle opened and a beautiful and sweet voice came from the castle hall. Annalyn was trembling and confused as she followed her father and others into the hall. On the high platform near the wall in the hall, on the golden chair inlaid with rubies, a young man in a medieval noble suit and a black high-collared cloak put down the Discover magazine in his hand, revealing a pale face. Barter had a face that didn't belong to a human. His facial features were clear and three-dimensional. His skin was crystal clear and the blue blood vessels could be seen. He was like an elf. That wasn't handsome or dashing. It could only be called beautiful. It was a kind of feminine beauty that could take one's soul away. Annalyn had been in the fashion industry for many years. Her friends were famous models, stars, celebrities, and so on. Among them there was no lack of royal family members. She was very knowledgeable and picky. "He's so handsome." But at this time she almost didn't dare to look directly at Barter. Stars and fresh meat were nothing in front of barter. If he was a star, Annalyn would definitely become his die-hard fan. She would watch every one of his movies, every concert, buy every one of his records, and dedicate all her savings to him. Barter was too charming. His divinity overflowed and seemed to be filled with a sacred bloody light. His every move and casual look made her heart beat faster. She was so excited that she almost went into shock. In fact, it wasn't just her. All the women of the Rothschild family had this feeling of heart beating faster and suffocating. They couldn't help but want to get close to him and worship him. Even Nathan's wife, who had been menopausal for many years, felt that she was wet. As for Raymond, James, and other men who thought highly of themselves, there was no doubt that they were so ashamed that they wanted to find a hole to hide in and disappear in front of Barter. "Little Nathan, don't worry." Barter stood up, flung his black cloak, and smiled disdainfully. "I will help you kill Kong Taechu. No matter how strong he is trash compared to the Duke level of the blood breed." His simple action exuded an astonishing charm, causing many women to cheer. "France's blood god. You are the most powerful existence in France. We believe you, worship you, love you." Barter nodded slightly and said in an elegant and calm manner, "I know he once killed Zeus, but I killed the previous generation of Zeus 100 years ago. Gods, T.S.'s. Europe is under my control. But he was able to kill the current Zeus, which means he is quite powerful. For safety's sake, I'd better summon a Duke-level blood breed and a few marquises to deal with him." "Thank you, blood god Barter. From now on, the Rothschild family will serve you more loyally. We are willing to give you everything we have." Nathan knelt on the ground and climbed up like a loyal dog. He humbly kissed Barter's toes and shed tears of gratitude. "I didn't expect the Rothschild family to worship the real French blood god. He killed the previous Zeus. He is so powerful. Kong Taechu is no match for him." Many members of the Rothschild family were also in high spirits, as if they had been injected with chicken blood. "Humph, if Kong Taechu dares to come, he will die." Annalyn raised her chin and snorted. Even if Barter wasn't the Roll family's backer, she would still support Barter. After all, Barter was too handsome. Just as everyone was in high spirits and discussing animatedly, Paris. That crazy woman. Raymond's phone rang. It was an overseas call from Paris. Raymond reported to his father and Nathan allowed him to answer the call. But this time Paris was looking for Mr. Nathan. "Mr. Nathan, it doesn't feel good to be kicked out like a dog, does it?" Nathan took the phone from his son and heard Paris's sarcastic tone. "Paris, don't be so smug. You don't know what I'm capable of." After summoning the Dark Duke Martel, Nathan's confidence was boosted. "Paris, don't be disrespectful to Mr. Nathan." At this time Marshall took the phone and said to Nathan in an amiable tone, "Mr. Nathan, in terms of business and politics, we've worked together many times. I also cherish the friendship we once had. Just admit defeat and compensate Sidoni with your family assets. I will persuade Mr. Jiang to spare your life and some assets. You're old after all. Isn't it good to drink tea, grow flowers, and enjoy your old age?" Marshall was being kind. After all, the California Financial Group and the Rothschild family had worked together before. He thought that if Nathan lowered his head and admitted his mistake, his attitude would be better and let Jiang Tian cool down. He believed that Jiang Tian would also give him some face. He did it out of the goodness of his heart. But to Nathan it was very unpleasant. He couldn't stand it. He sneered and said, "Marshall, there's no need for that. The friendship between you and me has already been destroyed by you. From now on, our relationship is severed." If the French blood god Barter didn't agree to help, he wouldn't have dared to be so stubborn. Jiang Tian had even beaten the French army into a sorry state. How could a secular family withstand him? But now he wasn't afraid. As long as Barter made a move, Kong Taechu wouldn't be his match. In the future, the Rothschild family might become the most powerful family in the world. "Nathan, where does your confidence come from? Why do you have to be so stubborn?" Mr. Marshall sighed deeply. "Where does my confidence come from? Humph, I don't need to explain my actions to you." Nathan's eyes suddenly turned cold. He said arrogantly, "You should worry about Kong Taechu and yourself. Don't worry, after Kong Taechu's death, I won't let any of you California Financial Group off the hook. Well, I hope you won't regret it." Marshall shook his head helplessly on the other side of the phone. "You are the one who will regret it." Mr. Nathan sneered and hung up the phone. He was about to turn the tables. How could he regret it? The Rothschild family had a Duke-level vampire as their backer. How could they lose? What kind of concept was a Duke-level vampire? He was more powerful than an immortal state warrior and could rival a mortal fairy and a saint. One had to know that Barter had once killed Zeus of the previous generation and repelled the entire pantheon. Lord Blood God, humph, this cunning marshal must know that you are my backer. That's why he called me. Seeing Barter's inquisitive look, Nathan sneered and shook his head disdainfully. Even if he begs for mercy, even if Kong Techu comes to beg for mercy, it will be too late. Let them die in regret. Ha, you think I will beg for mercy? Who gave you such confidence? At this moment, a voice full of mockery suddenly sounded in the hall. Everyone was shocked to find a tall and imposing figure at the door. He had black hair, black eyes, and a handsome face. He is Kong Techu. Raymond was so shocked that he subconsciously took a few steps back. Nathan stepped forward and said arrogantly, Kong Techu, you still dare to come? As a powerful person, shouldn't this be the castle of Dark Duke Barter? Are you here to die? It's just a few stinky blood-sucking bats. It's not like I haven't killed them before. What's so strange about it? Jiang Tian put his hands behind his back and looked at Barter calmly. He said indifferently, Barter, I am going to destroy the Rothschild family. Now you have two choices. Get out of here or die. Jiang Taichu, you arrogant fool who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Don't you know that your death is imminent? Annalyn pointed at Jiang Tian and mocked him. She was gloating over his misfortune. This Wuxia guy looked ordinary and not as handsome as Barter. How dare he make an enemy of the Rothschild family? Ah, you are Kong Techu? Barter's voice came slowly. It was a bit ethereal, as if his voice was coming from all directions. Do you know what sin you have committed? Barter was like a god above the 9 heavens, judging Jiang Tian with the attitude of looking down on an ant. Sin. I am not interested in discussing this with you. Jiang Tian felt it was very funny. He shook his head and said, I have already said it. You can either die or get out of here. The vampire family's dogma is that if you provoke the vampires must kill you. This is your sin. Barter's voice was pleasant to listen to. It was as smooth as silk, but it carried a monstrous arrogance. Although you, Kong Techu, are strong in the eyes of the vampires, you are no different from an ant. Now I sentence you to death. You are so arrogant. You dare to judge me? You talk too much nonsense. You are like a sissy. If you want to fight, then don't talk nonsense. Make your move as soon as possible. Jiang Tian's mouth raised into a mocking arc. He said with disdain. You are courting death. Barter roared angrily. His face suddenly became cold and twisted. 2 white sharp fangs quickly emerged. His body was filled with a torrential blood aura. He was about to attack Jiang Tian. Chapter 652. Just as Jiang Tian flew into the castle, a kilometer away from the Rose Castle. Iron Screen, Assassin Group, why are you here? A black magician in a red cloak stood on top of a tree and asked curiously when he saw a few black shadows flashing over. We're here to watch a good show, a once-in-a-lifetime battle. The leader of Iron Screen arrived in a blink of an eye and found a good spot to occupy. He laughed and said, Kong Techu will definitely come here. Who doesn't know that the French blood god Martel is behind the Roll family? Iron Screen's assassin group was ranked in the top 10 in the world, and France was also one of the best. But at this moment he was as excited as a 3-year-old kid who had just received his lucky money. He glanced around and found that they had come to the right place. I didn't come in vain. There are so many people. At this moment, around the Rose Castle, almost half of Europe was surrounded by dozens of strong people from the Dark World. Some of them were hiding in abandoned villas, some were hiding in the bushes, and some were hiding in the canopy. They were using binoculars to observe and whispering to each other. Iron Screen, your information is pretty good. That's right, Kong Techu has indeed entered. The black magician laughed. Who do you think will win? Everyone chatted for a while. Suddenly a strong person asked. That's hard to say. Kong Techu is very strong, but when Barter appeared just now he was very strong. A strong person exclaimed with an uneasy expression. This person was a European combat master who had once killed many polar bears with his bare hands in Norway. I think Kong Techu has a higher chance of winning. He killed Zeus. A trace of fear flashed across the black magician's face as he shook his head helplessly. Not necessarily. The leader of Iron Screen's eyes flashed with a trace of depth as he shook his head lightly. Why do you think so? A strong person asked. Because Martel also killed the older generation of Zeus. His strength is not weaker than Kong Techu, right? An alchemist in metal armor crossed his arms and laughed proudly. No. Because Dracula will definitely come. The leader of Iron Screen said indifferently. What? He's here too? I'm afraid Kong Techu is really in danger. An expert exclaimed. Iron Screen's leader still wanted to say something. Suddenly he raised his head and looked into the distance. His expression changed slightly and he said in shock, Did you see that, Shuiguang? It should be him. Did Dracula really come? Everyone's expression changed drastically and they all turned their heads. Several resplendent beams of blood-red light shot over from the distance at an extremely fast speed, covering hundreds of meters in an instant. A few streaks of blood-red light also noticed them and paused in midair. However, he didn't say anything. Instead, he sped up and flew directly toward Rose Castle. Martel, don't worry. Martel was about to attack Zhang Tian. Suddenly, several figures appeared in the hall. The leader was a middle-aged man. He was wearing a black woolen top hat with half a lens on the bridge of his nose. He was wearing a tuxedo, a white shirt and a black high-collared cloak with a red lining. He was leaning on a black cane. His beard was neatly combed, and his curly golden hair was naturally draped over his shoulders. He gave off an unruly yuppie vibe. However, looking at the surging blood-red aura around him, it was incomparably viscous and almost tangible. His strength was undoubtedly stronger than Barter's. Behind him, there were 3 sexy and enchanting women with voluptuous figures. They were dressed in chiffon and looked very coquettish. These 3 female vampires swayed their hips as they walked. Their breasts rippled and their eyes were as seductive as silk. Raymond, James, and the others felt their eyes and hearts beat rapidly. Honorable Duke Dracula, you've had a long journey. Seeing their arrival, Barter's arrogant attitude was replaced by ecstasy. He stood up to greet them respectfully. With one hand behind his back, he held Barter's hand with the other and kissed it. He bowed politely to this middle-aged man who looked like an old gentleman. Yes, I received your message and immediately rushed over from Romania. Dracula smiled. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other in shock and awe. It had only been 20 minutes since they came to the castle to summon Barter. If Barter called him over again, it would definitely be less than 10 minutes. But in less than 10 minutes, Dracula had crossed 3 small countries and arrived in Paris. This speed was even faster than a supersonic fighter jet. Was this still a human? This was a real god. Barter, don't worry. Can I talk to him first? Duke Dracula turned his head leisurely and smiled at Zhang Tian. Of course, as you wish. Barter said respectfully. Honorable Sir Kong Techu, I am Duke Dracula of Romania. Dracula bowed politely like an old gentleman. He then straightened his back and said, My name is Dracula. In fact, I have heard of you long ago and I admire you very much. You can even surpass Yi Tianren back then. I think that we belong to the same camp. If you are willing, why don't you join the blood breeds and let them manage Sidoni? How about we overthrow the current order together? Why should I give it to you? Who do you think you are? Zhang Tian said disdainfully. If you don't agree, then I will seek justice on behalf of the Rothschild family. Dracula's face suddenly turned cold. He then elegantly shrugged and said, Maybe I don't have the confidence to take your life, but your family, you are courting death. Zhang Tian's eyes suddenly turned cold. I think you are the one courting death. Dracula's eyes suddenly turned cold as he roared with a hideous smile. He sneered and said, 2 dukes of the blood breeds, 3 marquises. Even if Yi Tianren was here, he wouldn't dare to provoke us. Okay, Dracula, you have touched my bottom line. Zhang Tian flung his sleeves. His eyes were extremely cold and murderous. Don't say that you are just a dirty and ugly vampire, a dead bat that can't see the light of day. Even if the chairman of the Covenant of Darkness, the powerhouses of the Holy See, or the gods and Buddhas are here, I will still kill you. Since his rebirth, Zhang Tian cared about his family the most. He could give up money, wealth, power, and status, but he would never allow anyone to hurt his family. But Dracula, this old guy, dared to threaten him with his family. That was touching his bottom line. Then he would kill him without mercy. Then he must die. Presumptuous, how dare you speak to the blood gods like this? Raymond arrogantly took a step forward and roared. He seemed to be a little bolder now. Originally he thought that Kong Teichu must be like the gods in Wuxia mythology with 3 heads and 6 arms, and was as tall as a mountain. But now it seemed that he was just an ordinary person like him. And the arrival of the 2 blood breeds also increased his confidence. How could he be a match for the French blood god and Dracula? Noisy. How could Jiang Tian be polite to him? His face turned cold and he directly slapped Dracula's head. Smack. Bam. Broken bones flew everywhere, steaming brains and blood gushed out like a tide, and the headless body flew a few meters away. Nathan's beloved son, one of the Rothschild family's chosen successors, Raymond, died an unnatural death. Blood and brain matter splattered all over their bodies and faces, and they all shuddered at the same time. Oh, my brother is dead. Lord Blood God, please avenge my brother. Anna was so scared that her face turned pale and she screamed. She ran behind Barter, took the opportunity to hug his arm, and rubbed her big chest against his arm. Kong Teichu, you are so cruel. James's face was livid, and his eyes were burning with anger, as if he wanted to burn Jiang Tian to ashes. Son. My poor son. Nathan picked up his son's headless body, and fell to the ground with tears in his eyes. He didn't expect Jiang Tian to be so cruel, killing Raymond without a word. Compared to his other 2 children, he actually didn't like Raymond very much. This kid was domineering, lecherous, and had no sense of propriety. His talent in business and politics was also very ordinary. But in any case, he was his own flesh and blood, connected by blood, and the relationship between father and son could not be severed. At this time, the white-haired man had to send off the black-haired man, and he was heartbroken as if his heart was being cut by a knife. The atmosphere in the hall was extremely cold and solemn. Everyone knew. Jiang Tian killed the blood slave who supported him in front of Barter, and Dracula and Barter would definitely take action. Kong Teichu, you are too much, you don't know what kind of powerful existence you are facing. Seeing this scene, Barter was so angry that his face was livid. He slapped the armrest of the chair, and his body turned into a blood-colored stream of light, rushing into the courtyard and standing in the air. And this sentence, I should be the one saying it to you. Jiang Tian smiled disdainfully. Come out. Let us fight to our heart's content. Barter stood in the void, his face suddenly ferocious, his long fangs protruding out, and a murderous aura burst out. As you wish. Jiang Tian slowly walked out of the hall and step by step he ascended to the sky. He was very leisurely, but he gave people a feeling that he was invincible. In the Cultivation universe, anyone who dared to stop Jiang Tian would be killed without mercy. On Earth he was even more merciless. What are you waiting for? I'm dying of anxiety. Immortal and Dracula teaming up to fight Kong Teichu. This is definitely a battle of the strongest in Europe. They are all existences beyond the saint level. In the dense forest outside the ancient castle, many strong people from the dark world were scratching their ears and cheeks, extremely anxious. Why don't we go in and take a look? The alchemist suggested. That won't do. It's too dangerous. When the saints fight, it will destroy the world. The leader of the Iron Screen shook his head, his face full of fear. They're here. Immortal is here. Kong Teichu is here too. Suddenly, someone exclaimed. It's really them. All of a sudden, the noisy voices disappeared without a trace. Everyone looked up at the sky above the ancient castle, held their breaths and fixed their gazes. Their eyes were very excited, but they did not even blink once. Good, you have some skills, but tonight, the night of the full moon, the stars are shining, it's the best time to kill you. In the sky, Barter snorted coldly and directly took the initiative to make the first move. One could see with the naked eye that blood chi was rapidly condensing between his fingers and palms, and strands of dazzling blood-red light turned into pieces of red scales. In the end, it condensed into an evil dragon about 50 meters long. This blood-red evil dragon circled around him, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, spitting fire from its mouth and roaring continuously, making Barter feel even more powerful. Chapter 653. The Dragon of the West was different from Wuxia. It was like a large lizard spitting fire from its mouth. It was a kind of hell monster, a ferocious creature. In fact, dragon was more appropriate to translate as flying lizard. The blood-red dragon was too big. Everyone was shocked. The dragon's waist was thicker than a small car. It spanned half of the courtyard and was very visually impactful. Finally, under the expectant gazes of Nathan and the others. As Barter chanted, the blood-red dragon roared and rushed toward Xianxia. Boom. While twisting, the dragon's long tail swept and directly slapped a helicopter more than 10 meters away. It was deformed and the ground shook. Seeing this, everyone was shocked. That kind of momentum seemed to be able to destroy the world. It was shocking, suffocating, and numbing. Roar. The blood dragon opened its mouth, which was spewing fire, and bit at Xianxia. Barter is indeed the French blood god. He can smash him to pieces in one blow. Mr. Nathan shouted excitedly. He clenched his fist and swung it down heavily as if he could smash Xianxia's head. However, before he finished speaking, Xianxia stood proudly in the void. A mocking smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He smashed the blood-red dragon into pieces with one slap. The blood collapsed and turbulence swept across. The air was filled with the pungent smell of blood. Father, this. Seeing this, James frowned. Where's the dragon? Where did the blood-red dragon go? Anna was so scared that her face turned pale and she exclaimed. He can defeat the French. Naturally, he has some ability. I guess Barter didn't use his full strength. He's playing with him. He'll kill him later. Nathan explained awkwardly. Outside the castle in the spectator area, everyone was excited to watch the show. Kongtaechu is too strong. He smashed the blood-red dragon with one slap. The combat master's face changed wildly. As expected of a powerful existence who can fight the French army. His physical body is too strong. Then he couldn't help but sigh in satisfaction. Sigh, us physical combat type powerhouses have so much potential. Everyone was stunned. Since when did Kongtaechu rely on physical combat to win? Who had ever heard of it? The way I see it, Kongtaechu isn't just relying on his physical body. At the side, the dark magician said with a solemn expression, I've done my research on him. He must be a magician of the metal element and can control the metal element. And the most common element in blood is iron. He raised his chin and said proudly, he and I are the same kind of people. Our field has limitless prospects. Can you not flatter yourself? Beside him, Alchemist frowned and scolded. He's from Wuxia. He practices martial arts and spells, but you two are from Europe. His cultivation system is completely different from yours. You're trying to get close to Kongtaechu like this. Don't you guys have any shame? Alchemists are really ambitious and insightful. The Iron Screen leader gave a thumbs up and praised. We can't just watch the show without principles. After all, Barter is a European, a member of the Dark World in the West. Everyone nodded and cast a look of reverence at the alchemist. They all felt that the alchemist was very insightful and not as tacky as the dark magician and the martial arts master. The alchemist crossed his arms and raised his eyebrows so high that they could fly to the sky. He smiled coldly and arrogantly. The way I see it, Kongtaechu's move is clearly Wuxia's so-called condensing qi into a weapon, which is to condense elemental power. This is clearly the means of an alchemist. So, alchemy is still more promising. Everyone was speechless. Well, after beating around the bush for so long, you're still trying to get close to Master Kong. You're also trying to get close to Master Kong. Stop talking, they're fighting again. Just as everyone was talking, the Iron Screen leader exclaimed. Everyone turned their heads and looked at the sky above the castle. They saw that the battlefield had changed in minutes and seconds. Kid, you're quite capable. Seeing Xianxia shatter the blood dragon so easily, Barter was shocked and his expression changed slightly. Although he didn't use his full strength in that attack, not to mention a person, even a building would be razed to the ground. How could Kongtaechu shatter it so easily? Below, everyone from the Rothschild family was also confused and even worried. Barter's attack just now was extremely frightening, but the other party just waved his hand and it was gone? This kind of situation made Barter feel a little embarrassed. His eyes were about to split open and his handsome face was distorted. He roared crazily and shouted, that was just the appetizer. I don't even need to use the blood breed's secret technique to kill you. I can beat you to death with just my physical body. Then he turned into a red light and dove towards Xianxia. He punched towards Xianxia. I only need one punch to kill you. After all, Barter was a duke of the blood breed. His strength was second only to the prince, and he wasn't far from the first-generation vampire. He had killed the previous Zeus and had the strength to crush a saint. If he couldn't kill Zhou Xian with one punch, he wouldn't be able to survive in the vampire world in the future. The vampire family had always been very proud and narcissistic. When this punch was thrown, it was as if a blood-red rainbow had streaked across the sky. It was extremely fast and brought about an ear-piercing sound. Before the fist landed on Zhou Xian's body, the violent pressure arrived first. Many manors and tall buildings behind Zhou Xian collapsed first. The furthest one seemed to be more than a kilometer away. Oh my god, Barter is serious this time. This punch can definitely destroy a large battleship. As expected of the Zeus who killed the previous Zeus. He's so powerful. Many powerful people looked at this scene in horror. Their hearts beat wildly and they all retreated to avoid being affected. Barter's strength was too terrifying. Just the wind from his punch could destroy a building. If it hit a human, how terrifying would that be? It's over. There's no need to look anymore. He's dead for sure. In the castle, Nathan once again used an expert's tone to force a conclusion. Go to hell, despicable Kong Techu. James roared with a face full of resentment, and a smug smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Come on, Barter. Lord Blood God is the most handsome. Looks are justice. Ugly Kong Techu, go to hell. On the side, Annalene was ecstatic. Her beautiful eyes were full of worship, and she waved her pink fists to cheer for her idol. In the face of this terrifying punch, Zhou Xian didn't dodge or evade. It was as if he was going to take this punch head-on. This is a punch with the power to shatter mountains and rivers. He actually wants to take it head-on. Many powerful people who were watching the battle were shocked and dumbfounded. Idiot, how dare he compete with the blood god Dark Duke in physical strength? Nathan said loudly, full of sarcasm. Is he crazy? How dare he take this punch head-on? The others were also in disbelief. Even if they were just people of the secular world, they all knew that the blood race won with their powerful physical bodies, and they could even reach the point of immortality. Everyone had also seen it. The wind from this punch was enough to destroy a building. What's more, if it really landed on a person. Ah, good Kong Techu, you're really arrogant. How dare you take it head-on? Very well, I'll let you know what a real duke is and how terrifying the power of the French blood god is. Barter grinned and his eyes were full of hatred. Zhou Xian's confidence made him feel that he had received a great humiliation. This punch was already falling toward Zhou Xian's chest. However, just as he finished speaking, his fist was firmly grasped by Zhou Xian. How is this possible? Barter was shocked. He felt an even more majestic and vast force completely controlling his fist that was comparable to the explosion of a missile. This is... Around them, Nathan, James, Annalene, and the other Luo family members were shocked and confused. Oh my god, are my eyes playing tricks on me? He can take this punch so easily. Many of the dark overlords in the audience area exclaimed. They couldn't believe it. Even Prince Dracula's expression changed slightly, and his pupils suddenly contracted. Barter's punch was like a meteorite falling from the sky, but Kong Techu blocked it so easily. This was unbelievable. Zhou Xian was like the boxing champion Mike Tyson, catching a 3-year-old's punch effortlessly. Break. Barter's arm shook violently and the tip of his fist rushed forward. He didn't hold back at all, but he couldn't move an inch forward. Barter's arm was shaking crazily. The path forward was blocked and the force could only be released backward. In the midst of the blood, a terrifying force that could topple mountains and overturn seas followed his arm and exploded behind him. Boom. The sea of blood was surging and a 1-meter-wide crack appeared on the ground behind him. The crack spread to the castle 100 meters away, and the terrifying force cracked a big hole in the castle, causing the buildings to collapse. In the courtyard, several helicopters were blown dozens of meters away. The blades were shattered and the fuselage was twisted into scrap metal. The range of the impact was too wide and the destructive force was terrifying. However, this violent force couldn't even make Zhou Xian move at all. What kind of evil technique is this? Why can you restrain my power? Barter's handsome face was full of shock and disbelief. He realized that he had seriously underestimated Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian definitely had the power to surpass the saint level. Could it be that he was a legendary saint king, saint venerable, or even a real god? Barter didn't dare to think about it and his hair stood on end. You talk too much. Zhang Tian sneered. He controlled Barter's fist with one hand and raised the other hand high. You are a duke of the blood race, right? Zhang Tian sneered and then slapped Barter's face. Flap. 5 clear fingerprints appeared on Barter's face and the surrounding air froze. Even Barter himself was dumbfounded. The members of the Rothschild family didn't dare to make a sound, and they looked at the scene in front of them with incredulity. The dignified Dark Duke Barter had been slapped in front of everyone. That was the blood god who could defeat tens of thousands of soldiers by himself. He was an old monster who had lived for hundreds of years. But now he was slapped like a child who had made a mistake. The point was, he couldn't dodge it. Chapter 654. Who would believe this if it was spread out? A duke of the blood breed, the infamous blood god of France, was slapped in the face. This had never happened in France or even in the history of Europe. My god, he actually slapped in the face. Kong Teichu's strength is actually this terrifying? The expressions of the many experts of the Dark Association who were watching the battle from the periphery changed drastically. Their hearts were filled with shock and trepidation. Only those who had reached their level would understand what Zhang Tian's fighting style meant. This meant that in the battle with Barter, Zhang Tian had completely dominated. He had completely suppressed Barter's terrifying strength and many of the blood breed's secret techniques. He didn't even have the strength to resist or dodge. Otherwise, how could he slap someone in the face? This wasn't a street fight. This was a battle of life and death that could destroy the world. Barter was not only powerful but also extremely arrogant. How could he endure being slapped in front of everyone? If this spread out, he would become the laughingstock of the dark world. He wouldn't be able to raise his head for the rest of his life. In an instant, Barter's eyes turned red. His monstrous anger almost exploded his chest. He bared his fangs and blue veins popped out. He looked up to the sky and roared, "I will slap." Zhang Tian slapped him again. Barter's body staggered and almost fell to the ground. Your outfit is quite gaudy. Heroic and cool, a cock costume? You want to be a wedding master? We are all humans. Why are you pretending to be a chicken? Barter was hit until he saw stars. Blood flowed from his mouth and his cheeks were broken. But he shockingly found that he couldn't use any of the blood breed's secret techniques in front of Zhang Tian. His earth-shattering strength was completely restrained. He was like an ordinary person without any strength to fight back. Barter couldn't help but be horrified. Before he could react, another slap landed on his face. You're quite handsome, aren't you? Continue acting cool for me. Zhang Tian slapped him again. Can you not hit my face? Barter was so angry that he was about to cry. I will hit your face. Who told you to be more handsome than me? Zhang Tian slapped Barter again, sending one of his demonic fangs flying. Blood god. How dare you call yourself a god? Why don't you show it to me? Pop. Zhang Tian chuckled and slapped Barter again. Blood spurted out from Barter's nose. Everyone was dumbfounded. Barter was also dumbfounded. The world was spinning and he felt dizzy. Nathan felt that everything in front of him was like a nightmare. It was very unreal. This was too unbelievable. In front of Kong Teichu, the Dark Duke was like an ordinary person who couldn't even truss a chicken. He was slapped here and there by Kong Teichu. Aren't you handsome? Pop. Zhang Tian slapped him. Aren't you very arrogant? Another slap. At this time, Barter finally reacted. He was so angry that his hair stood up like a hedgehog. The Dark Duke? Blood god. Zhang Tian was full of sarcasm as he slapped him again. He was too lazy to say anything. Everyone knew that this was not the same level of suppression. The Dark Duke Barter was beaten like a dog. He couldn't fight back at all. In front of Zhang Tian, he didn't even have the strength to fight back. He didn't even have the dignity. But the last slap had the power to destroy the world. Barter was like a spinning top that had been whipped. He was sent flying dozens of meters away and crashed heavily into the ruins of the castle. His face was covered in dust. After a long time, the Dark Duke Barter crawled out and shouted angrily, Kong Teichu, you have completely infuriated me. Today, even if I have to waste 300 years of my blood essence, I will tear you into pieces. Barter was so angry that his eyes turned red. Even when facing the Holy See, the Palace of Gods and tens of thousands of European troops, he could deal with them calmly and escape. And now, after being slapped by Zhang Tian, he was so angry that he was about to explode. He felt so wrong that he even wanted to cry. Sky of blood and fire. Barter shouted angrily. The blood essence all over his body was ignited, turning into pillars of fire that shot into the sky. Barter, you are taking too much of a risk. Dracula's expression changed drastically. He exclaimed and wanted to stop him. This sky of blood and fire was Barter's ultimate move. By burning his blood essence, he would gain 10 times more combat power than before. However, once he used this move, he would lose half of his life. This was a move that risked his life. No one can stop me. Today I will kill this bastard. Barter's nails and fangs grew rapidly. His pupils contracted to the size of a needle tip. His eyes were like the eyes of a snake, becoming more and more demonic. Whoosh! 2 wings full of bone spikes emerged from his back like a bat. They were about 10 meters long and broke through his clothes. Blood chi surged around his body like a surging tide. A monstrous murderous aura shot into the sky. Blood chi, hostility, and murderous aura formed an imposing aura that shot into the sky like a mushroom cloud exploding from a cannonball. Today he was humiliated by Zhang Tian. If he didn't kill Zhang Tian, he wouldn't be able to wash away this humiliation. In an instant, between heaven and earth, dark clouds rolled and covered the sky. Blood chi filled the air as if it was boiling. Red light filled every inch of space as if some forbidden power had been triggered. I like brave warriors with a heart, but I will never let him expire. Brave warrior, I will devour you bite by bite. I will carefully taste your delicious and sweet blood. Barter revealed his fangs. He waved his cloak and raised his hand to point at Zhang Tian. As soon as his words landed, the blood chi between heaven and earth suddenly converged and turned into an incomparably viscous black mist that wrapped around Zhang Tian. This black mist was about 50 meters long. It was viscous, slippery, and soft. There wasn't the slightest bit of leakage. Sometimes it was like an octopus, sometimes it was like a python. It changed in an instant and presented a mysterious and gloomy beauty. Whoosh! Wherever the black mist passed, plants withered, birds fell to the ground, and wild cats stiffened. They turned into ashes in the blink of an eye, and all vitality was taken away. Even the members of the Luo family who were a few hundred meters away from the black mist died in an instant and fell to the ground. The Black Death Curse. Back off. Seeing this scene, many overlords who were watching the battle turned pale and exclaimed like mice seeing a cat. It was one of the 10 most powerful curses in the European vampire world. It was so fierce that anyone who heard it would be terrified. Rumor had it that this terrible curse was taught to Barter by the first vampire, the strongest blood ancestor, Cain. Barter had once used this curse to kill tens of thousands of British elites during the war between England and France. They were all infected with the Black Death and died in pain and struggle. The handsome one will definitely win. Annalyn was excited. Maybe Martyr would turn the tables this time, but it wasn't certain. I once used this curse to kill 37,000 people with a single word. Today I'll use your blood essence to strengthen my Black Death curse. Barter's energy surged as he waved his hands. The power of the curse even split the dark clouds in the sky. This curse is big but useless. It's like garbage. Zhang Tian sneered and shook his head. You're still so stubborn even when you're about to die. Barter shouted angrily. He formed a spell with his hands and stomped his right foot on the ground. Bang! A deep pit appeared on the ground and it shook violently as if there was an earthquake. He pushed his Dharma power to the extreme. Boom! Roar! The black curse kept changing forms. It sometimes looked like a skull and it moved its molars and chewed crazily. At other times it looked like a demon with goat horns. It roared and waved its steel fork in all directions. The Black Death curse that looked like black glue completely wrapped around Zhang Tian, constantly pulling and spinning him. Clang clang clang. A few villas were crushed into powder by the Black Death curse. Mountains were razed to the ground and trees and stones were flying everywhere. The manifestation of mental energy, the ability to interfere with reality, and the fact that it possessed such great power was already shocking. Not to mention that this was the most vicious curse in the world. A drop of it could kill a transcendent grandmaster. The Black Death curse formed by 700 years of my essence and blood. Even the immortals of Wuxia would die here. Barter was so tired that blood spurted out of his eyes, nose, mouth and mouth. His face looked even more terrifying. However, he was smiling triumphantly, and there was a hint of madness in his smile. Kong Teichu, no matter how powerful you are, no matter how powerful you are, no matter how powerful you are, you will still die. He had burned his blood essence to increase his power by 10 times and formed the Black Death curse. He was confident that he could kill even an earth-level deity from the east or a sage king from the west. How dare you offend the Black Earl and challenge the dignity of the blood god of France? Only death awaits you. As soon as he finished. Then a faint voice came from the power of the curse. Have you had enough? This voice caused the smiles that were gradually blooming on everyone's faces to instantly freeze, and they could no longer smile. The voice was a bit sarcastic, cold and impatient, as if an adult had seen a naughty child. Subsequently, everyone saw to their astonishment that Jiang Tian walked out from the ball of black gelatinous curse without the slightest injury, and he seemed relaxed and carefree. The next moment Jiang Tian stepped on the air and crossed a few hundred meters in a blink. He arrived in front of Barter and slapped him again. Bang! Barter fell to the ground after being hit. His head smashed a deep hole in the marble floor and his body sank into it. Jiang Tian walked to the edge of the hole and looked down at Barter. He said sarcastically, "Is this your trump card?" Half of Barter's head was shattered, but it was regenerated by the secret art of the kindred. You don't even have the right to make me use 10% of my power. Jiang Tian's words were like a heavy hammer that hit Barter's chest, and also like countless slaps that hit his face continuously. What did you say? At this time he gritted his teeth and his face was full of anger and unwillingness. Then it gradually turned into endless shock and fear. I said, with your power, you don't even have the right to make me use my real power. With your level and combat power you still want to protect the Rothschild family and punish me? You are too arrogant and narcissistic. Are you kidding me? Jiang Tian said sarcastically. I'm going to kill you. Barter's face turned red and he felt humiliated. He struggled to get up and roared angrily. Really? You don't repent? Jiang Tian laughed and raised his right hand. Then he swatted down gently as if he was swatting a fly. Boom. A giant golden palm about 10 meters long with endless Dao inscriptions smashed down like the palm of a giant spirit. Chapter 655. You can't kill me. I'm immortal. Barter roared angrily and struggled with all his might. He used the secret techniques of the Blood Clan but it was useless. He was slapped 10 meters deep into the ground. His bones were shattered and his internal organs were scattered everywhere. He was badly mutilated and looked like a pile of meat paste. I don't accept this. You can't kill me. Barter roared again. Before he could condense his body, Jiang Tian stomped on him again. Boom. Barter was trampled and sank more than 10 meters. At this time his blood was gushing out. His limbs were broken and his internal organs were scattered everywhere. There was a big hole in his chest. The next moment, Jiang Tian waved his hand, and Barter flew up uncontrollably. Jiang Tian grabbed Barter's hair and dragged him out like an eagle grabbing a chick. Then he dragged the famous Dark Duke as if he was dragging a rag and walked towards the Rothschild family with big strides. Everyone saw Barter falling down with blood all over his body, leaving a long bloody line on the ground. They couldn't help but feel numb. Nathan staggered back, James' face was pale, and Anna was so scared that she fell to the ground. Was this a battle? Was this a battle that everyone was confident in? No, this wasn't a battle at all. This was just a one-sided beating and abuse. That's right. This was abuse. There was no battle, no equal competition and no counterattack. There was only one person fighting. Jiang Tian was violently beating Barter, and the latter didn't even have the strength to fight back. The whole place was dead silent. Even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Including the strong people who were watching the battle, everyone's face was pale. They didn't dare to say a word. They were scared out of their wits. Even Dracula was so scared that his face was pale. His legs were weak and his whole body was trembling. He was also a Duke of the Blood Clan and his strength was on par with Barter. If he joined the battle he wouldn't be any better. You're just a stinky vampire bat. You want to fight with me? Jiang Tian's right-hand fingers sank deeply into Barter's skull. Amidst the blood-curdling screams, Jiang Tian's expression was calm and even cold as he suddenly pulled out his head and spine from his torso. His spine was dripping with blood. A sea of blood was surging up and down, emitting a magnificent red light. When the spine was pulled out, Barter's body withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. His muscles had collapsed and shriveled, his skin was wrinkled and dull, and age spots had sprouted. He was all skin and bones, and his fingers were like withered tree branches. His blood essence was drawn out by Zhang Tian using the 1,000-gold ancestor. Without the nourishment of his blood essence, his body, which had a lifespan of 700 years, instantly aged and collapsed. This Kang Teichu's methods are too ruthless. Everyone from the Luo family was scared out of their wits. They couldn't even stand properly. Too strong. It's like crushing an ant. Many experts of the dark sect had fearful looks in their eyes. They were scared out of their wits and a chill ran down their spines. It was as if they had seen a devil. Zhang Tian tossed the head with the spine in front of Dracula and said with a calm expression, "Don't worry. Dracula, didn't you want to seek justice for the Rothschild family? Come." The reason why Dracula said this before was that he coveted Zhang Tian's power and influence in Sidoni. If he could control Sidoni and become a god that the people believed in like Zhang Tian, then he would have endless blood slaves to enjoy. He could turn Sidoni into a country ruled by the blood race and restore the lost glory of the blood race. When Zhang Tian rejected him, he publicly said that he wanted to seek justice for the Rothschild family. But now, did he dare? Honorable Sir Kang Teichu, this is all a misunderstanding. I definitely don't dare. Dracula trembled and quickly bowed deeply. He revealed a humble smile and begged for mercy in the most respectful tone he had ever used in his life. Martel was killed so quickly and Dracula also submitted? At this moment Hera rushed over on holy light and saw this shocking scene. She couldn't help but turn pale with fright. Smack. Zhang Tian slapped Dracula's face with the back of his hand and sent him flying to the ground. Dracula was beaten until blood flowed from his mouth and his face was covered in dirt. He was a blood race at the Duke level and had thousands of blood slaves and believers under his command. In the Middle Ages he would be on equal footing with the royal family and nobles and would be treated with respect. But now he was beaten to the ground. Kang Teichu, he was extremely embarrassed and his face flushed red. He crawled up and instinctively glared at Zhang Tian, but he restrained himself. That's right, he was angry but didn't dare to say anything because Zhang Tian's strength wasn't something he could resist. Martel was a good example. Dracula was so regretful that his intestines turned green. Had he known that Kang Teichu was so powerful, he wouldn't have gotten involved in this mess even if he was beaten to death. Wasn't this just asking for trouble? Although Dracula had tolerated it, that didn't mean that Zhang Tian would let him go. Zhang Tian slapped down with a cold snort. What are you looking at? You're courting death. Kneel. Although they were both dukes, Dracula's strength and physique were superior to Martel's. Otherwise, Martel wouldn't have been so respectful toward him. Despite his peerless physique, Dracula's knees went soft under Zhang Tian's palm and he fell to his knees. At this moment, Dracula felt as though a 10,000-ton mountain was pressing down on his body. All his bones were about to shatter and turn into meat paste. After he knelt on the ground, his upper body couldn't take it anymore, and he prostrated himself on the ground in front of Zhang Tian. Hiss, hiss. At this moment, all the members of the Rothschild family gasped in shock. Seeing this scene, whether it was James or Anna, their faces were as pale as paper and their bodies were emitting cold air. They trembled as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. Even Nathan's face was filled with despair. His white hair fluttered in the wind, and his straight waist instantly bent down as though he had aged 10 years in an instant. At this moment, Zhang Tian slowly turned around, looked at the Rothschild family members and sneered, "Nathan, this is what you're relying on? This is your last trump card? Trash. It's really trash. You dare to provoke me with this?" At this moment Nathan's face was ashen and his eyes were lifeless. His empty eyes were filled with regret and despair. In the face of Zhang Tian's questioning he didn't move at all. It was as though he had lost his soul and was numb. Originally he thought that Zhang Tian would definitely die against Martel. After all, Martel was an invincible French legend in his mind. But the result? From the beginning to the end, Zhang Tian had been suppressing Martel. He even said that Martel didn't have the qualifications to fight with Zhang Tian. In the end he was directly skinned alive by Zhang Tian. As for Dracula, he was pressed down by Zhang Tian to kneel on the ground like a toad, but he didn't dare to say a word of resistance. At this time Dracula was trembling all over. His face was pale and full of fear and uneasiness. Obviously Jiang Tian's palm was heavier than a mountain. He couldn't resist at all. But Nathan screamed in despair in his heart. Why were these legendary Duke-level blood breeds, who were invincible in 10,000 battles, as weak as a 3-year-old child in front of this Wuxia kid? He didn't even have a chance to fight back. If I remember correctly, Iris and Marshall persuaded you twice and gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. Jiang Tian shook his head gently. These words made Nathan regret even more. It was like a sharp sword that stabbed into his heart. Endless regret filled his heart. He couldn't take it anymore and sat down on the ground. Yes. In fact, Sidoni's offer of $50 billion in compensation was more of a symbolic meaning. It was also to deter the multinational corporations that polluted Sidoni's North Bay. If the Luo family chose to apologize and compensate with Iris and Marshall's mediation, Jiang Tian might not really ask for $50 billion. Maybe $10 billion would be enough. In that case, the Luo family would have a chance to make a comeback. And just now Marshall had persuaded him again. If he admitted his mistake, he would lose his wealth, but at least the Luo family bloodline would be preserved. But now, everyone knew that what awaited them was destruction, removal from the world, and death. At this time Nathan was also very regretful. It was his arrogance and stubbornness that pushed the Rothschild family into the abyss again and again. If that's the case, then go to hell. Jiang Tian smiled and a murderous aura spread out. However, Nathan was indeed the most successful patriarch in the history of the Rothschild family. Even if he was about to die, he still had to give it his all. Begging for mercy was death, resisting was also death. He couldn't escape death, but maybe there was still a chance of survival if he gave it his all. Thinking of this, a flame of courage burned in Nathan's heart. He suddenly straightened his body and took a step forward. His slightly widened eyes were full of killing intent. Honorable Mr. Kong Techu, I admit that the Luo family has lost this time, lost completely. The French army has been defeated and Martel is dead, but the Holy See and the Covenant of Darkness are still around. The more he spoke, the more he felt that his words were reasonable and the more fluent he became. He spoke with fervor and assurance. You invaded Europe, massacred thousands of soldiers and committed countless crimes. The Holy See won't forgive you. You killed Martel, the blood slave of Cain, the descendant of the prince. The Holy See won't forgive you either. Mr. Kong Techu, you are indeed strong, but so what? Compared to the Holy See and the Covenant of Darkness, you are still too far away. They can make you an enemy of the whole world with just a word and you won't have a place to hide. And whether it is in the Holy See or the Covenant of Darkness, I have deep connections. If you let me go, then fine, I will let bygones be bygones and shake hands with Mr. Jiang. I will cover up the fact that you killed Martel and convince the Holy See and the Covenant of Darkness not to do anything to Mr. Jiang. Moreover, the Luo family has great influence in Europe, just like the California Consortium in America. Once I become friends with Mr. Jiang, I will naturally support you like Marshall, be loyal to you and become your most powerful helper in France and Europe. But if you insist on doing things your own way, the Holy See and the Covenant of Darkness won't go easy on you. I think with Master Kang's wisdom he will make a rational choice between having one more close comrade or two more mortal enemies. At this point he put one hand on his waist and straightened his back like a sword. He looked at Jiang Tian with a faint smile, full of confidence. Chapter 656. Your Excellency Kong Techu, why don't you consider Mr. Nathan's suggestion? At this moment even Dracula agreed and suggested with an apologetic smile. Nathan, this old fellow, was very charismatic and an expert negotiator. He was good at both coercion and bribery. Shut up. Jiang Tian slapped Dracula and sent him flying a few hundred meters away. Then he turned around and looked at Nathan. Murderous intent appeared in his eyes, like a sharp long sword. Nathan, I didn't expect you to be so stupid. Bribery is enough, but you still think you're smart enough to threaten me. Ah, the Holy See and the Gathering of Darkness? Make the world my enemy? In my opinion they're nothing. Today I won't leave a single one of you Rothschild family alive. You'll all die. Jiang Tian glanced at Hera and the other experts and shouted in a domineering manner. As for Hera, Dracula, and the other powerful fighters of the Dark Association, I'll have to trouble you to spread my words today. I Kong Techu am here. Whoever doesn't like me, feel free to come find me. Whoever wants to be my enemy, feel free to come and try. I'm not targeting you, but the gathering of darkness, the holy sea, and even the entire world. Make the world my enemy? When have I, Kong Techu, ever been afraid? Jiang Tian flung his sleeves and laughed maniacally. Jiang Tian's words were like a rumbling thunderclap that shook the minds of everyone to the point they were on the verge of collapse. Arrogant. Too arrogant. The pride and confidence to run rampant in the world. The unparalleled dominance. Many of the powerful fighters of the Dark Association hiding in the forest changed their expressions. Their hearts were in turmoil and they were shocked beyond words. In the Battle of Sidoni Cass Lake, Jiang Tian had trampled on the Hall of Gods, Blue Storm, and the Winter Soldiers, the three top organizations in the world. In just one night, Jiang Tian had defeated one of the 5 permanent members of the world, France, and killed the French blood god, making the Rothschild family like a stray dog. Now they were threatening to challenge the Holy See and the Covenant of Darkness. This was simply too heaven-defying. This was truly going against the whole world. Earth could no longer contain him. Honorable Sir Kong Techu, I believe that the Covenant of Darkness has no enmity towards you. Don't be instigated by a despicable person like Nathan. Count's heart was pounding. He could not believe it. With a bitter taste in his mouth, he bowed deeply to Jiang Tian. He didn't dare to accept this challenge. A Duke-level vampire was very powerful and had a high status. However, there were still the princes and the blood ancestor above him, as well as the blood ancestor Cain. He didn't even have a seat in the Covenant of Darkness. Who knew what kind of attitude the blood ancestors and the top old monsters had toward Kong Techu? Mr. Jiang, you should have seen the friendly attitude of the Palace of Gods during the battle with France. I think the Holy See should also love peace. Hera smiled wryly, shaking her head and sighing inwardly. This Master Kong was too domineering. Did he have to turn the world upside down? Honorable Sir Kong Techu, please forgive my rudeness. Seeing that his threat was ineffective, Nathan's face turned pale. He was shocked and his knees went weak. He wanted to kneel and beg for mercy. It's too late. Jiang Tian's eyes were cold and emotionless. He snorted and used a secret technique to deprive his lifespan. Die. In an instant, Nathan's expression suddenly became dull and his eyes became empty. A wisp of vitality visible to the naked eye disappeared. His body stiffened and he fell straight to the ground, dying an unnatural death. Honorable Kong Techu, please spare my life. I'm willing to serve you. The few beautiful young ladies of the Luo family were all scared witless and scrambled to pounce on Jiang Tian. Die. But a cold voice sounded. They were only halfway there when their heads exploded and their hearts exploded. They all fell to the ground in different postures and died. I'm willing to be your female slave. Please don't kill me. Anna didn't even care about her dignity. She took off her clothes and was naked, revealing her jade-like skin and exquisite curves. She knelt on the ground and crawled toward Jiang Tian with tears on her face. She wanted to sell her beauty to save her life. Die. Jiang Tian didn't even look at her and turned her into a cold corpse in the blink of an eye. Leaving her corpse intact was already merciful. In an instant, James, Anna, and more than 200 men, women, and children of the Rothschild family all bled from their orifices or their heads exploded. They fell to the ground in an instant and died an unnatural death. Jiang Tian took out several ropes from his storage ring and used a secret technique to tie up all the corpses. He rose into the air and flew toward the city of Paris. Honorable Kong Techu, what are you doing? Hera's eyes showed a trace of fear. She rode the holy light and chased after him. Oh, parade. Scare those Parisian nobles and let them know the consequences of offending me. Jiang Tian was expressionless. Seeing Hera's dumbfounded expression, Jiang Tian said coldly, "Don't look at me like that. I'm not a good person and I don't care about humanitarianism. These people think that they're nobles and above others. They don't have a trace of blood on their hands and are gentle and elegant. But in fact they've killed much more people than I have. To the ordinary people this war had started suddenly, but it had ended even more suddenly. The battle started at 8 at night and ended at 1 in the morning. As for Jiang Tian's killing of Martel and his descendants, it was a small commotion and didn't attract much attention. In the next few days, many media outlets refuted the rumors and claimed that the so-called god Sidoni didn't exist. It was a high-speed aircraft that Sidoni had recently developed. He looked like a human. How is that possible? I saw a living person and he was Asian. Black hair, black eyes, and white clothes. How could it be an aircraft? They're lying. They're deceiving and fooling the people. How did the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre in Paris get smashed? Why did a garbage transport ship appear? Faced with such a flawed explanation, some people shouted in dissatisfaction. In response, another media outlet said with certainty, a strong tropical storm broke out and blew these ships over. Many meteorologists and environmental experts were interviewed and listed similar events that had happened around the world. They used all kinds of data and theories to support that this phenomenon was completely natural. Lies. A bunch of nonsense. It was clearly the god Sidoni who smashed down. Those ships are from the New World. Let's go online and take a look. Yes, let's upload the pictures I downloaded online and slap their faces. Someone suggested. However, people around the world suddenly realized. They had deleted all the news about Sidoni's god that they had reposted on Twitter, Facebook, and any other media outlets. Even if they were posted again, they would be deleted in seconds. They couldn't even post it. They're trying to control public opinion. They don't want us to know the truth of the world. A wise man sighed meaningfully. In fact, this was indeed forcefully promoted by the intelligence departments of the major countries around the world. Many media outlets and internet companies cooperated with the implementation, but at the same time, they also received Zhou Xian's tacit consent. Zhou Xian didn't want the United States and other major countries to feel that the old order of technology and civilization would be broken by him. That would make them restless, and they would probably shed all pretense of cordiality with him. Zhou Xian only wanted to cultivate and leave Earth as soon as possible. He didn't want to be disturbed by these secular forces. Civilizations had their own processes and destinies. From beginning to end, Zhou Xian didn't want to subvert their order. He just wanted to find a place to live and cultivate as a stepping stone to leave Earth. Then in the next few days, Zhou Xian dragged the body of the Rothschild family across France and Europe. He began to hunt down hundreds of Martel's descendants. These were all kindred below the duke level, and their strength was equivalent to the transcendent state or even lower. Zhou Xian didn't encounter any decent resistance at all. A few days later, the rope behind Zhou Xian was hung with thousands of bodies. There were kindred, Martel's support, and Rothschild's allies. These bodies were densely spread out like a giant cape made of corpses floating behind Zhou Xian. Just like that, Zhou Xian wore the corpse cloak and swaggered across the sky above France, England, Germany, and other European countries. That devil is here again. Devil. Devil. All the European people who witnessed this scene were so frightened that they screamed and ran for their lives. But from beginning to end, the military of the European countries didn't fire a single shot. They turned a blind eye. They even refuted the rumors that it was a movie made by a film company and asked the people not to panic. They tried all kinds of fancy lies to cover up the truth. In the end, Zhou Xian dragged the bodies and appeared above the Élysée Palace. Xianxia, everyone, do you see this? This is the end of the Rothschild family. This is the result of provoking me. After Zhou Xian appeared, he shouted coldly with a domineering aura. This scene shocked many President Xianxia and the cabinet members as well as the heads of the major families. Their legs turned to jelly and they couldn't help but kowtow to Zhou Xian. Also, I've killed the French blood god Martel and his descendants. They're all evil vampires. Do you want to give me a reward? Zhou Xian smiled and joked. Don't you have demon hunters and bounty hunters in France? Master Kong, please don't kill anymore. France is already in chaos. President Xianxia was about to cry. He wanted to kneel to Zhou Xian and beg Zhou Xian to stop. France was a country that loved revolutions. They would overthrow something for no reason and cause trouble in the streets. President Xianxia's clumsy performance in a series of changes had caused great disgust among the people. The whole of Paris wailed and was buried by the stinking garbage. Overnight, many of France's historical sites, the brightest pearls on the crown of human civilization, were all overshadowed and turned into ashes. The capital of art and romance is dead. It has left us forever. Paris without Mona Lisa's smile is a dead city. Life is so empty. My life has no meaning. A street artist hung the southeast branch of a French parasol tree beside the ruins of the Louvre and wrote these words with red paint under his feet, dripping with blood. So many people committed suicide that there was a large police force patrolling the area around the Seine River 24 hours a day. This was because there would be someone jumping into the river every few minutes. There was no way they would miss. There were even rumors of doomsday. It was said that 2012 was coming and the end of the world was coming. This was a sign of doomsday. Despair and anger filled the air, and the aura of doomsday enveloped France. The citizens of Paris took to the streets to protest the decadent French government. Xianxia couldn't take it anymore. Chapter 657. The French people believed that it was President Xianxia's inflexibility, inefficiency that led to France's huge losses. France was in an uproar. In Paris and other major cities, citizens demonstrated on a large scale and broke out into serious riots. They clashed with the police and the army. The valiant masses took the water cannons and tear gas from the police and were invincible. Many places were spontaneously taken over by the masses. Workers took over factories, radical doctors took over medical societies, actors closed theaters, and even some clergy declared themselves revolutionary. The battle quickly entered a stalemate. On the streets of Paris and other cities, there were fortifications everywhere. Smoke filled the air and flames soared into the sky. There were at least 200,000 people involved in the riots. Thousands of people were killed or injured in a day. The whole of France was completely out of control. The government and the army were in a half-paralyzed state. The military and police patrol cars and radio vans kept roaming the streets and shouting, calling for restraint and calm. But no one listened. Many police cars and military vehicles were attacked and destroyed. 3 days after the riots, there was a serious shortage of drinking water and food. The citizens began to rob supermarkets, banks, and occupy factories. Everything was out of control. Now France's CAC 40 index futures had fallen for a few days in a row, with a total decline of more than 30%. In addition, Britain's FTSE 100 index and Germany's DAX index were also affected and fell continuously. Zhou Xian floated down and a large number of corpses fell to the ground behind him. At this time, a middle-aged man with an extraordinary bearing stepped forward and bowed respectfully. Your Excellency Kong Teichu, I am the President of the European Commission, Young. I pay my respects to you. Zhou Xian only nodded slightly to him. Ronga bowed and begged in a low voice, his face full of awe and fear. In the past week, you have been chasing Martel's descendants all over Europe. The intelligence agencies of the European Union not only did not stop you, but also cooperated and supported you. I think this has already shown the sincerity of the European Union. But there are still many descendants of the blood clan that have not been killed. Zhou Xian shook his head with a heavy expression and said with a look of concern for the country and the people. These disgusting blood clan have no respect for law and order. They destroy the stable and peaceful social order and bully the kind and simple European people. They have brought too much suffering to Europe. I deeply sympathize with him. As a good young man with a sense of justice and ideals, how can I just sit by and watch? I swear to the lamp that I will annihilate all the filthy things. Your Excellency, please stop. As long as you are willing to stop, the EU will agree to all your conditions. Jung almost jumped up in fright. After the Covenant of Darkness, the secular government and the Holy See reached a truce agreement. The blood race had gone into hibernation. They no longer drank the blood of the living, nor did they create blood slaves. They had almost never provoked the secular world. The blood they needed came mostly from blood bags purchased by the secular families that worshipped them, or from animal blood. On the other hand, every time Zhou Xian killed a member of the blood clan, he would destroy a large area and cause chaos. Everyone was in a state of panic. One had to know that most of these vampires lived in the rich and old families. Zhou Xian and the other vampires couldn't avoid killing 1 or 2 tycoons as punishment. It would definitely affect those wealthy families. As a result, everyone in Europe's upper-class society felt insecure and terrified. Those tycoons cherished their lives the most. They closed down their businesses and scrambled to escape. They transferred a large amount of their assets and wanted to emigrate overseas. This led to a large capital outflow in the entire Eurozone. France's value against the US dollar, Wuxia currency, and gold had plummeted. The entire euro currency system was about to collapse. Moreover, the rich and powerful were now in an uproar. They had joined forces to pressure the governments of various countries and the EU. Some of the rich and powerful were even planning for their countries to leave the EU. If Zhang Tian continued like this, the EU would definitely go bankrupt. Zhang Tian smiled faintly and said, "If that's the case, then let's sit down and have a good talk." He had been wandering around Europe recently and had caused a lot of trouble. Qin Jinming must have gathered all kinds of capital to short the euro and the French CAC 40 index. He must have made a lot of money. Zhang Tian didn't care about these worldly wealth. After all, he was already in the late stage of qi refinement and had a chance to enter the foundation establishment. But his allies cared. The people of the Medicine King Group in Sidonie also needed these wealth. Zhang Tian came to the Élysée Palace, and under the escort of many people he walked into a grand and majestic meeting room. After sitting down, Zhang Tian tapped his fingers on the armrest and said, "My conditions are simple. I want the EU market to be open to the Medicine King Group. I want to exempt them from customs duties and give them preferential treatment." Ever since Zhang Tian took over Tanjuan's business, the Cherry Blossom Society, and the Singapore Chinese Society, the Medicine King Group had been selling in Southeast Asia. With the cooperation of Zhang Tian and Marshall, the Medicine King Group had successfully entered the American market under the promotion of the California Financial Group. Now only the EU market was left. The EU was the richest economy in the world. Most of its 26 member states were developed countries. It was a huge market. As soon as Zhang Tian finished speaking, the faces of many European Union officials turned pale, as if they had lost their parents. The Medicine King Group was like a tiger that had descended from the mountain. Its medicine was extremely powerful and it was almost invincible in the Southeast Asian market. Now that they had entered the European Union market, they would definitely pose a great threat to those established biotechnology and pharmaceutical companies. They might even be suppressed to the point of being wiped out. Previously, the $2 trillion USD war reparations was a bit too much for you. But you have to compensate us for the Rothschild family's wealth. France can add a little more and make it $100 billion US. France's President Xianxia was even more depressed after hearing this. He wanted to kill himself with a piece of tofu. The Rothschild family only had 9 billion euros and France had to contribute the rest. It was like cutting meat with a blunt knife. It's really difficult for us to fulfill these conditions. It's too difficult. Cold sweat broke out on Jung's forehead and his body trembled. If that's the case, I will slowly hunt down those blood descendants. Zhang Tian shook his head and said, "I'm happy to do something good for the French people. I don't want the reward. I have the spirit of internationalism." "Oh no. Don't worry, I will do my best to make this happen." Jung and Sanchi almost jumped out of their seats. "Very well." Zhang Tian stretched his body and said lazily, "That's right. Jung, Sanchi, get ready as soon as possible. In 3 days come with me to Sidonie to sign the relevant treaty." Zhang Tian was very cautious. This time he was fast and quickly attacked the hinterland of France. He attacked the capital directly and did not give them the opportunity to release nuclear weapons. But if he swaggered back to his country and crossed the Atlantic Ocean, they might be able to release nuclear weapons. "Yes, Honorable Kong Ti." Jung and Sang Chi stood up and bowed helplessly as they agreed. After the meeting with Zhang Tian, President Sanchi returned to the Élysée Palace and gave a speech in the ruins. "We will thoroughly investigate the Bibu Bay pollution incident and severely punish the New World Company. We will give the people of Sidonie and the world an explanation." It was drizzling that day. Sanchi stood under the tricolor flag, frowning, waving his fists with grief and indignation, reading the speech written by the think tank. Of course, it was absolutely impossible for the leaders of Western countries to let others hold an umbrella for him, so Sanchi's face was covered with rain, which added to his anger and sadness. Some were happy and some were sad. France and the European Union suffered heavy losses in this battle, but Zhang Tian's camp gained a lot. "Mr. Zhang is really amazing. He actually defeated France, Mr. Marshall. You really didn't misjudge him." At the celebration party of Deer Leap Wine Cellar, Facebook founder Mike said excitedly, "Yes. Mr. Zhang is the real figure standing at the top of the world. We will never suffer if we follow him." Marshall sipped his red wine and nodded approvingly, unable to hide his smile. This time he followed Qin Jinming to short the euro and the French stock index, and the profits exceeded the family's profits in the past 10 years. Moreover, he controlled 30% of the shares of the French nuclear power group at a super low price. After France stabilized, the stock price would rise and the profit would be several times higher. Then he solemnly raised his glass to Paris Hilton next to him and said with a smile, "Paris, thank you for introducing Mr. Jiang to me. Here's to you." Ah, this is the real Deer Leap wine cellar, the bottle of 1973 Cabernet Sauvignon that defeated the Bordeaux Chateau. Paris took a sip and said with a smile, "Mr. Jiang hunted down a superpower alone. I think we should give him a title." Marshall drank a lot of red wine and became more and more excited. He suddenly laughed heartily. "What title?" Everyone's face was full of anticipation. "National Hunter Jiang Laigua." Marshall raised his eyebrows slightly and said with a stern expression. He made the final decision and made the most colorful footnote for this international dispute that attracted the attention of the world. Jiang Laigua? Invincible, hunting down a superpower of a superpower, how appropriate. In the corner, Jenny Paris, who had been quietly listening, thought of Jiang Tian's peerless demeanor when he dominated France. At this moment she couldn't help but mutter to herself with a face full of reverence. She had actually become infatuated. Oh, he wasn't hunting. He wasn't trying to show off his strength. He's protecting. Marshall's granddaughter, Rachel, corrected her with a serious face. He fought for the sake of protecting the people of Sidonie who were suffering. He never thought of invading any country. As she spoke, she was moved to tears and said with a choked voice, "He is indeed a superpower, but in my heart he is a hero who fought for justice and light. A hero who fought to liberate Sidonie, to build Sidonie, to protect Sidonie." That night the name Jiang Laigua shook the world and suppressed the world with unparalleled glory. Chapter 658. In South Korea. Li Jianxi from the Xinhua family smiled. "Jinju, Mr. Jiang's battle has changed history. He's so strong. He defeated the French army all by himself." Li Jinju's face was glowing. She felt like she was in a dream. In Singapore, Li Xianlong slammed the table and shouted, "Show off our country's might. Did you see that? That's the Grand Tutor of Singapore. He's so much stronger than that old guy Wang Chongyan." In Yanjing, the head of the Song family, Song Beishan, received the news. "Sidonie will probably become the richest country in the world." Tuangyan was right. The Song family should never provoke him. "Sigh, I'm afraid we'll never have the chance to take revenge." Beside him, Lu Zhenghua shook his head and sighed. "He's already the true controller of Sidonie. Plus he pushed Sidonie into the top 5 countries in the world. How terrifying." In Sidonie, at the construction site of the Cass River Bridge. The construction was already finishing and it would be open to traffic in a week. Zhang San and Li Si, the young men of the 3 heroes ranking manor, were sitting in a simple room with air conditioning. Together with their colleagues, they were watching the news of Taichu, leading the 3 armies to sweep through France while eating white steamed buns and red braised pork. Invincible. Long live the god of Taichu. Long live Sidonie. France was defeated by the god of Taichu. Zhang San waved his fist and cheered excitedly. Time to work. Li Si put the last bite of the steamed bun into his mouth and licked the grease on his fingers. He stood up calmly, washed the dishes and put them in the cupboard. He put on the clean and neatly folded uniform of the Anju real estate and walked toward the construction site. No one saw that the moment he walked out, his face was covered in tears. "Dad, he took revenge for you. That's weird. Is he on steroids?" Everyone felt that Li Si's work in the afternoon was 2 to 3 times faster than before. Kong Taichu killed the French blood god Duke Martel. When this news spread, the entire dark world was in an uproar. Back then Jiang Tian had killed Zeus, which had already shocked a group of people. Now it was even more shocking. Back then when Jiang Tian killed Zeus, it wasn't a smooth victory. Instead he had to forcefully activate a great divine ability to banish Zeus into eternal exile. Moreover, Jiang Tian was so tired that he vomited blood and grew old. But this time they saw from the video that Jiang Tian was completely suppressing Martel. It could be said that Martel didn't have the strength to fight back at all. As for Count Dracula, he did not even dare to move. To be honest, when I saw this scene I couldn't believe it was real. How can Kong Taichu be so strong? Iron Screen's leader sighed on the forum. That's right. Martel, the French blood god, is said to have a lifespan of 700 years and a strong physical body. But look, he's like a 3-year-old child. The alchemist Raging Flame and Hammer was also amazed. Rumor had it that Martel, the French blood god, had once killed the old Zeus and shocked France and Europe for hundreds of years. If it wasn't for the rise of modern weapons and the increasing power of secular governments, his reputation would definitely be on par with the Palace of Gods. Although Kong Teichu mainly attacks with his physical body, I suspect that Kong Teichu might already have the strength of an Earth Immortal. The Dark Magician at the scene side. That's the Western Holy King realm. As soon as this was said, the forum was like a pot of cold water poured over hot oil. It was completely boiling. Earth Immortal. It was too illusory. It was too mysterious. Human immortals in Wuxia were equivalent to the Western Holy King realm, and Earth Immortals were equivalent to the Supreme Holy King. In the East, after the Song dynasty, there were no more Earth Immortals. Before that, it was all just rumors. In the West, for thousands of years, there were only a few holy kings, and they were all illusory and untrustworthy. Many people doubted this dark magician's words. They didn't dare to believe it and didn't want to believe it. But this dark magician said with certainty, "You have to know that Martel once killed the old Zeus. His cultivation should be above that of an ordinary holy king." But Kong Teichu has imperceptibly suppressed and imprisoned all of Martel's blood clan's secret techniques. If this isn't an Earth Immortal, then what is? Besides, even if Martel was at his peak, he probably wouldn't be able to fight against the modern French army, right? He killed tens of thousands of people back then, and that was in the era of cold weapons. But Kong Teichu can. Could it be that Kong Teichu is really going to be invincible in the world? A mercenary king who had been on the royal assassin list several times sighed with a pale face as if he had seen a god. No wonder he dared to speak so harshly to the Gathering of Darkness and the Holy See. Perhaps the only ones who can suppress him now are the Gathering of Darkness and the Holy See. Someone speculated but immediately added another sentence. Even the first generation of vampires can't fight him alone. Only by working together may there be a slim chance of survival. As soon as this remark came out, the entire forum fell into a palpitating silence. Many strong men trembled and no one dared to say a word. Jiang Tian was unaware of these discussions and he didn't care. He had already returned triumphantly on the French Air Force One accompanied by the restless Sanqi and Yong. On this day the entire San Juan was empty. Inside and outside the airport, tens of thousands of people lined the streets to welcome him. The San Juan airport was full of flowers and colorful flags. The sky was blue and the sun was shining brightly. White clouds floated quietly in the sky. On both sides of the airport's runway, in front of the welcoming team were Hu Qingtian, Shen Mange, Zhang Qianlei and other martial arts strongmen as well as people from Tianqing School. Behind them were President Qin Yang, Speaker Ander, King Arthur Jr., Archbishop Dashiel, and the soldiers of the Heavenly Army. Behind them were Jiang Tian's family, Zhang Wanqing, Jiang Chongqing, Zhao Xueqing, Huang Linger and others. Outside the San Juan airport on the airport street, the sidewalk was crowded with men and women, old and young. It was so crowded that one couldn't see the end of it. People wore red flowers on their arms, and the statue of the beginning hung on their chests. Their eyes were looking in the direction of Jiang Tian's car, waiting for Jiang Tian's car to drive over. A silver-haired old black woman held the statue of the beginning with both hands and kept praying, waiting anxiously and patiently. A black worker couple, wearing the uniform of Unju Real Estate, held a child of 7 or 8 years old. A group of black middle school students with tears in their eyes held each other's shoulders, tiptoed, and looked. The wife held the child's hand and walked down the sidewalk, leaning forward to look. The child asked, "Mom, will I see the beginning?" "Yes. You will pass by here." The black mother said. "That's great." The black child said excitedly, "The teacher said that he saved our country and brought us clean water, jobs, houses and food. The priest in the church said that he is a god and defeated the invaders." "Yes, he defeated the invaders. Those French people and those multinational companies have killed many people, many Sidoni people. In the future it will never happen again." The child's mother said, "When I grow up I want to be like the beginning. I want to build Sidoni and protect Sidoni." The child's face was full of admiration and his eyes were firm. A plane from France. He should be back. Inside and outside the airport the crowd was in an uproar. Tens of thousands of people looked up at the sky. They saw an Air France plane crossing the sky and landing slowly in the airport. People were looking forward to it. Godfather, you are finally back safely. I was very worried. In the airport, little Arthur ran to Zhang Tian and threw himself into Zhang Tian's arms. He hugged Zhang Tian's waist and tears rolled down his cheeks. Little brat, you are so useless. He even cried. What are you worried about? Zhang Tian patted the little guy's head and laughed. What can a few Japanese do to your daddy Zhang? Thank you, the beginning deity. You defeated the invaders and protected Sidoni. Following Dahir's loud shout, the tens of thousands of people present all knelt down and cheered. Thank you, the beginning deity. You defeated the invaders and protected Sidoni. Inside and outside the airport, tens of thousands of voices were heard. There were men, women, old and young. They were like thunder that shot into the sky, shaking the clouds in the sky. Get up. Zhang Tian stretched out his hands to support them. Thank you, the beginning deity, for protecting our country and our people. You are our god and our hero. Zhang San and Li Si, the two black men, represented the people of Sidoni and offered a wreath. They kowtowed to Zhang Tian 3 times and 9 times. Thank you. Zhang Tian put on the wreath and helped the two of them up. He took the opportunity to give a speech. There has never been a deity. I am not a deity. I am just like everyone else. We are all human. It's just that my strength is stronger than ordinary people. And the strong fight to protect the weak. The blood of the strong should flow for the weak. No matter how strong the strong are, they can't do without the support of the weak. The weak create an environment and material support for the strong to become strong. The two together form an endless civilization system. If there are no weak people, then there are no strong people either. Zhang Tian's speech made the people of Sidoni love and respect for Zhang Tian even more. Zhang Tian swept his gaze over the crowd. His clear and melodious voice clearly entered everyone's ears, stirring up everyone's minds. Today I fight to protect Sidoni. In the future I hope that everyone will fight to protect me and my family. Not because I am Kong Techu, not because I am the god in your heart. But because I am alone. A part of Sidoni. In Sidoni, everyone is the fire of civilization and the most precious wealth. Let us join hands and fight side by side to build a prosperous and powerful new Sidoni. We are not bellicose, but we are not afraid of fighting. If we fight, we will fight to the death and not retreat a step. Behind us is our home. Hearing Zhang Tian's words, everyone slowly clenched their fists. Their eyes were shining and their bodies were trembling slightly. Everyone felt their blood boiling. Boundless energy and fighting spirit surged within them. A boiling hot thing was brewing in their eyes and hearts. It was like hot magma that had been suppressed for a long time and was about to erupt. Absolute beginning, if there comes a day when you are in danger, I will fight for you until the last drop of blood is shed. Li Si was so excited that his body was trembling. He roared with tears in his eyes. Chapter 659. He had once seen a video in which Zhang Tian braved the rolling artillery fire and went deep into the enemy's territory alone. He pushed back hundreds of miles and forced the French president to admit defeat. He had also seen Zhang Tian dragging thousands of bodies across Europe, which frightened the entire Europe. Those bodies belonged to the Luo family, the culprits who killed his father. Kong Techu kept his promise, avenged him and protected Sidoni. Then he would also fight for Sidoni like Zhang Tian. Me too. Zhang Sen also shouted. Fight for Taichu. Fight for Sidoni. Fight for every one of Sidoni's 600,000 people. Countless people roared at the top of their lungs like wild beasts. Tens of thousands of voices shot to the sky like rockets, as if they were going to tear the sky and shatter the earth. What a terrifying nation. Many European Union officials who didn't dare to come out of the cabin turned pale and trembled in fear. This is the centralization of power. This is the terrifying thought control, the standard of a backward nation. President Jung of the European Union curled his lips and shook his head, seemingly disdainful, but there was a flash of envy deep in his eyes. When Zhang Tian got on the black car with the red flag and drove out of the airport towards the Taiching sect, thousands of people's hearts were stirred. Wherever the car passed, the old people, young people, children, countless people rushed to kneel on the ground, cheering, praying and worshipping. Every time Zhang Tian lowered the window and waved to the crowd, some people fainted out of excitement. "Ah, old Zhang, you're quite good at this." Zhang Qianlei smiled and said, "100 miles long street and 10,000 people welcoming me. Even when I became the Grand Preceptor, I didn't have such a grand lineup. Aha, the Grand Preceptor of your decadent regime is unpopular. What kind of lineup is that? Jiang Tian picked up a glass of red wine, took a sip and said with a disdainful smile. This red flag car was a custom-made model from Wuxia. There was a freezer, a wine cabinet, a red wine cabinet, a TV system, a leather massage chair and all sorts of other equipment in the car. Show off. Zhang Qianlei rolled his eyes and sneered. Old Jiang, I admire your ability to fool people. Look at how you made those Sidoni black people act as if they saw their father. What trick? The part at the airport, Zhang Qianlei said with a smile. Meryl and the others are streaming it live on the internet. The people outside the airport who picked you up saw it too. The effect is really good. Brother Lei, if I say that I'm telling the truth and not trying to trick you, would you believe me? Jiang Tian asked calmly. Like how I'll believe you? Zhang Qianlei bared his teeth and said, what error is this? Who still believes in such nonsense? It's simply laughable. Which of the experts and cultivators of today doesn't view human lives as worthless ants? They take and kill as they please. And when they encounter a real superpower, they immediately cower and hibernate like rats. Not to mention fighting to protect the weak, they don't even dare to fight for their own dignity and interests. Don't laugh at them. In your eyes they are cowards, but they think that they are preserving their strength and waiting for the right time. Only idiots would fight head-on with a superpower. Isn't it good to bully ordinary people, plunder their wealth, or be the dogs of a superpower and enjoy the glory and wealth? Jiang Tian smiled faintly and said, in the depths of the universe, many human cultivators act according to the bottom line of cultivators. What bottom line? Zhang Qianlei was puzzled. Yes, not running away, fighting for the weak, guarding your sect, your country, that is the bottom line. A trace of profoundness appeared in Jiang Tian's eyes as he sighed and said, the universe is vast and the sea of stars is boundless. In addition to us humans, there are many other powerful races. Demons, devils, extraterrestrial devils, and all kinds of bizarre alien races. In the universe, the reason why humans can conquer these unorthodox demons and stand at the pinnacle of the universe is precisely because of the unity of cultivators and ordinary people, living and dying together, fighting side by side. Although cultivators are powerful, their lifespans are short. Their lifespans are long, but their numbers are too small. They will always be 1 in 10,000. Although ordinary people are weak in battle, they are numerous in number and have strong reproductive ability. They can support a large-scale interstellar civilization that spans the star field. Not to mention, the vast majority of cultivators were born from ordinary people. And among the descendants of cultivators, a large portion of them are ordinary people. For example, cultivators are fish and ordinary people are water. Cultivators are trees and ordinary people are soil and earth. In short, the huge number of ordinary people is the foundation that supports the cultivation civilization. Without ordinary people, the cultivation civilization will completely collapse. In the human cultivation countries and planets, especially in the more developed cultivation civilizations, there are many super large magical artifacts. Although they are designed and refined by cultivators, they still require the assistance of thousands of ordinary workers during the manufacturing process. Not to mention the series of cultivation civilization systems that support them, which are all established by ordinary people. Jiang Tian said seriously. What I said was not a bluff, but the most important idea that I formed after many years of drifting in the outer space. You are so serious that I am not used to it. Zhang Qianlei smiled and did not say anything else. However, there was a thoughtful look on his face. At this moment, Qin Yang came over and reported, Master, in the past week, we have made a profit of $80 billion by shorting the euro, as well as shorting the French CAC 40 index and other stock index futures. Besides, we have also taken control of 30% of the shares of the 3 largest automobile companies in France, a supermarket chain, a natural gas company, and 20% of the chips of the French National Nuclear Corporation. However, France is in chaos right now. The stock market is closed. We have to stop here. Qin Yang's tone was a little bit excited, but also a little bit disappointed. He was excited because they had made a profit of $50 billion by shorting the French stock index in New York in just 1 week. It was a pity that their control over some of the core companies in France had not reached their target yet. If the French stock market could still trade normally, they would have been able to control the top 10 companies in France, which meant that they had control over the economic lifeline of France. The attack this time had used all of Jiang Tian's funds. All of Jiang Tian's business and political alliances had participated in the battle too. In the United States, Qin Jinming's One Eye Fund led by Wall Street, the Marshall family, the Hilton family, and dozens of other big families and enterprises in California participated in the attack. In Southeast Asia, Li Xianlong's family and the Singapore Chinese Society were involved. In Japan, the Fucking Gang and the Sakura Society led the attack. The Mitsui Group and other tycoons also invested in the attack. It could be said that this financial attack involved Africa, Asia, and America. Hundreds of big families, tycoons, and large enterprises were the main force. The total amount of funds used was more than $200 billion. From military, politics, economy, and finance, the attack had been successful. If the truth was revealed, this battle would be recorded in history. It would surpass Soros's attack on the British pound, Southeast Asia, and the Asian financial crisis. Soros had seen the internal contradictions and loopholes in Southeast Asia's financial system and exchange rate system. He was only the catalyst. Jiang Tian's attack was even more sinister. Brazenly mobilizing troops, military strikes, and subverting French politics as a means to seize economic and political benefits. Very good. Jiang Tian nodded slightly, not minding at all. He had attacked France to create a good environment for Sidoni's development. He didn't think there was anything wrong with destroying the Louvre. The oil paintings in France were beautiful. Buildings were a kind of civilization. But was Sidoni's environment not important? The lives and health of the people were not important. He had negotiated with them in accordance with international law, but they were acting like hooligans. How dare you act like a hooligan in front of me? How dare you? Very well, I will beat you until you cry. As for making money, it was just a matter of convenience. You and Yi Ziwei will negotiate with the European Union and let the Medicine King Group enter the European market. Also, the Xing Essence Immortal Healing Village has started to recruit people from around the world. Jiang Tian said. Yes, master. Qin Yang was energized and quickly bowed. Once the Xing Essence Immortal Healing Village opened, it would attract countless tycoons and scientists from around the world. They would flock to Sidoni. By then, Sidoni would not only be a rich country, but also a powerful one, comparable to the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. After returning to the Taiqing sect, Jiang Tian went to the central hall and sat on the throne. Below the stage, the members stood respectfully and waited for his orders. Sasaki Kaisha, you will be rewarded according to your contributions. Jiang Tian cracked a smile and glanced at everyone. Then he raised his right hand. Fush. Many spoils of war fell to the ground like a waterfall, drowning half of the hall. Martel was known as the blood god of France. He had lived for 700 years and had plundered a lot of gold, diamonds, gems, antiques and jades in France and half of Europe. Jiang Tian chased after Martel's descendants all the way and excavated several treasure vaults, gaining quite a lot. The worldly wealth was naturally left to the Medicine King Group. Then Jiang Tian gave them a few Dharma treasures. God-killing spear. It was a spear used by a dark mage who was on good terms with Martel. It came from the hands of an ancient alchemist and was inscribed with mysterious curse patterns. It was incomparably sharp and could pierce through a tank with a single strike. Crimson blade. It was a long sword used by a blood race earl. It was filled with the blood of 10,000 people. It had killed a saint and had the ability to swallow blood. It was quite terrifying. Thor's hammer. It was the spoils of war of the blood race. They couldn't use it themselves. It was said that it was used by a red-robe cardinal. They took it after killing the cardinal. There were a few thunder crystals embedded in it which had powerful lightning energy. It was even more powerful than Zeus's scepter. There were many weapons and treasures, all of which were real Dharma treasures. They were piled up like a mountain and dazzled people. Some even had spirituality and were close to spirit artifacts. But what really caught Jiang Tian's attention was a finger bone. Chapter 660. The finger bone was pale gold in color and was 3 or 4 times larger than an ordinary person's finger bone. It was stained with blood and was surrounded by divine light, emitting rays of auspicious colors. A powerful spiritual pressure was released. This is a superhuman who has evolved to the extreme. The The potential brain cells in the deep brain region are completely activated, forming a superbrain with extremely powerful spiritual power. Although it's still a distance away from the immortal and divine bodies, it's still very scary. When Zhang Tian saw it for the first time, he felt a sense of trepidation. At that time, Hera said that it was the bone of a descendant of the gods and belonged to the Holy See. She wanted to ask for it, but Zhang Tian refused. Could it be that the legends of the Western gods are true? That there really are gods or descendants in the Holy See? Zhang Tian once asked Hera about this. But the latter smiled bitterly and shook her head, not saying anything in detail. What she said was just some unfounded legends. It was beyond her authority to talk about these inside stories. In Zhang Tian's opinion, Hera was still loyal to the Holy See. Even if she knew, she wouldn't say anything. What's more, she might really not know. Just as Zhang Tian guessed, she assisted Zhang Tian to kill the blood breeds. She was also helping the Holy See to get rid of their old enemies. I've already inscribed some Taoist scriptures and turned this finger bone into a spiritual artifact dagger. This treasure is undoubtedly the most valuable. Zhang Tian wasn't very worried about the Holy See. This bone should be from 1,000 years ago. Even if it was a descendant of the gods, it might not be able to survive until now. Sect Master, are you going to give these to us? Sasaki Aisha's beautiful eyes widened in disbelief. Everyone present was also overjoyed. They were excited and looked expectant. After following Zhang Tian, they had made rapid progress. Now that their cultivation was deep, they naturally knew the value of these treasures. At a glance, they could tell that these treasures were definitely extraordinary and powerful. It could be said that if any of these treasures were to be born, it would be earth-shattering and set off stormy waves. I've said that as long as you fight the enemy bravely, I will never treat you unfairly. I'll reward you according to your contributions. Quickly distribute them. Zhang Tian smiled and nodded. Yes, sect leader. Sasaki Kaisha took out his merit book and went up to choose a magical weapon according to the order of merit points. Brother Lei, don't be shy. This thunder hammer is for you. You've done me a great favor. Seeing Zhang Qianlei rubbing his hands and looking around sneakily, Zhang Tian picked up the thunder hammer and handed it over with a chuckle. Zhang Qianlei cared a lot about his face and was very proud. Normally, he treated Zhang Tian as an equal, so naturally he couldn't receive any rewards from the sect. However, when he saw the lightning hammer, he couldn't help but feel envious. His eyesight was very good. He could tell that this was definitely a quasi-spirit weapon and was even more powerful than Mount Longhu's ancestral 5 Thunder Seal. How can this old Daoist be so shameless as to compete with the juniors for treasures? What a joke. Although Zhang Qianlei said that he didn't let go of the thunder hammer as soon as he took it. He was afraid that Zhang Tian would regret it, so he turned around and ran away. Hu Qingtian's martial arts came from the Shaolin Temple, and his staff arts and spear arts were not bad, so he chose the god-slaying spear. He came to the door and stabbed with the spear. Suddenly, a spear aura dozens of meters long pierced through the void and shattered a rockery. His power increased tenfold. Although he was half a step away from the immortal state, he could easily kill an immortal state warrior. The other martial arts overlords also received their own rewards. Everyone was in high spirits and complacent. Everyone, I've made some cultivation pills before, but I didn't give them out. Zhang Tian tapped his fingers on the armrest of the chair and said with a smile. After this battle, your cultivation has become more condensed and it's a good day for you to break through. Today I'll help Hu Qingtian, Wei Feilong and Zhao Yunkun break through to the immortal state. Follow me. Thank you for your kindness, Sect Master. We'll never forget it. Hu Qingtian and the other two were overjoyed. They knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Zhang Tian to express their gratitude. They were so excited that tears almost came out of their eyes. We will definitely be diligent and fight for the sect and the country. We will not hesitate to lay our lives on the line. For them, they had enjoyed enough wealth and power in the secular world. They didn't care about anything else. Only the truth of the immortal state was tempting. They were their only hope. Immortal state. Ascending to heaven in one step. Ascending to heaven in one step. The others were envious. At the same time, they were also determined. If they had such an opportunity again, they must not be afraid of death and perform better. Only then would they be rewarded by the sect master. The rest of you will be rewarded with elixirs. Qing'e. Zhang Tian glanced at Qing'e. Zhou Xian took out a bottle of elixirs and distributed them according to merit points. Under the envious gaze of the crowd, Xianxia and the other two followed Jiang Tian into a cultivation room. Although the three of you are my disciple in name, in my heart, you've always been my best brothers. After standing still, Jiang Tian patted the three of them on the shoulder and smiled. Sect Master, this is too much for us. Master, how can we? The expressions of Xianxia and the other two changed drastically. They were both touched and uneasy as they hurriedly knelt down. The current Jiang Tian's cultivation was unfathomable, as deep as the sea. As the ruler of a country, he was able to defeat France and stand shoulder to shoulder with a major country. How could they dare to be on the same level as him? Get up. Jiang Tian sighed and helped them up. He seemed to remember the past, and a touch of vicissitude appeared in his eyes. Back then we met at Poyang Manor. We didn't know each other until we fought. You went through a lot of hardships and traveled thousands of mountains and rivers to find the daughter flower for me and help my wife embark on the path of cultivation. Later on, the Great Circle became my enemy and offered hidden flower as a bounty. It was you who fought bloody battles to protect my Jiang family. After that, I became enemies with the Bai family and the other 6 martial arts families in Yanjin. It was you who traveled thousands of miles to help and fought side by side with me in half of Wuxia. To be honest, I've been wandering my life and I know how sinister people can be. Although I've known you before, there's still a big gap between our relationship and the word brother. I still have some reservations. In the end, I took control of Sidonie. It was you who left your homeland. Under the covetous eyes of the United States, the European Union, Russia, and other superpowers, you risked your lives and followed me across the ocean to this impoverished land. You didn't even blink your eyes. Actually, the moment you boarded the ship, you've already passed the test. I already treat you as my brothers. If this isn't brothers, what is? Master Kong. The three of them had tears in their eyes and their blood was boiling. Their voices were trembling and thousands of words were stuck in their throats. They only felt that it was worth dying to be called brothers by Jiang Tian in this life. Although I've been careful and we haven't caused any major losses, you and I both understand that we've been taking a huge risk. It's a life-threatening risk. Jiang Tian sighed. For your loyalty, for your trust, for your side, you deserve to be called brothers. Master Kong. To be able to follow you is the blessing of 8 lifetimes. Master Kong, no matter how dangerous or difficult it is to follow you, we've never regretted it for a moment. Xianxia and the others knelt on the ground. When they thought of the days when they followed Jiang Tian on expeditions, their hearts warmed and their noses turned sour. They couldn't help but burst into tears and wail. Men don't cry easily. The 3 of them were strong-willed people, but now they were crying. This wasn't cowardice. It was for lofty aspirations, for brotherly love, for the many years of fighting side by side, for the brotherly love that never left each other. What I regret the most is, brother old devil. Jiang Tian slowly closed his eyes, shook his head and sighed with a sad expression. I didn't teach old devil a powerful cultivation technique, which led to him being killed by the Gu God sect. Even if I annihilated the Gu God sect, even if I killed Bai Tianlei and Hao Hongmei, even if I annihilated the Bai family, so what? Death is like an extinguished lamp. Old devil is gone forever. He's dead and he can't come back to life. So what if he's a grandmaster? So what if he's dead? He's still dead. Jiang Tian's voice was sorrowful and he even choked with sobs. Every time I think of old ghost, even if I exhaust the entire world, I can't wash away the remorse and regret in my heart. I'm still full of regret. In fact, I don't want to see any of my brothers die or get into trouble. However, in the struggle for the great Tao, in order to ascend to the heavens and stand at the peak of the world, killing is unavoidable. Sect leader, don't be sad. Take care. Yes, the dead can't come back to life. Don't be too sad. Xianxia and the other 2 tried to persuade him. It's okay. I'm not sad. Jiang Tian waved his hand and forced a smile. Death can't be avoided, but it can be greatly reduced. The heavenly armor and weapons that I gave you are just external objects. The most important thing is to improve your cultivation. The next moment, Jiang Tian's face turned serious. He shouted, Today I'll help you to enter the immortal state. Whoosh. Jiang Tian flicked his finger, and 3 cultivation pills turned into liquid and shot into the bodies of the 3 men. What a powerful medicine. Boom. The three men's bodies trembled. They felt a surge of medicine running wildly in their bodies like dragons and tigers. Get rid of all distracting thoughts, concentrate on your qi and use the cultivation method that I taught you before. Jiang Tian shouted softly. The three men quickly sat cross-legged on the ground, focused their minds, and used the cultivation method that Jiang Tian taught them. Rise. Jiang Tian stomped his feet and the ground trembled. The small golden lake between his eyebrows rippled. Whoosh, whoosh. Two divine senses shot out and hit the array eye of the perpetual cycle array. Suddenly, rumble. The array was activated and the spiritual qi between heaven and earth surged. Streams of dense spirit qi hundreds of meters long, spread across the sky and converged from all directions. This spiritual qi is so abundant. Outside the door, Shin Mange and the others exclaimed in disbelief. Zebek, this spiritual qi is too strong. It will form storms and lightning. You can't withstand it. Zhang Qianlei exclaimed. Hearing this, everyone looked fearful and stepped back. Sure enough, the vast spiritual qi, like huge tentacles, rushed madly toward the cultivation room where Jiang Tian and the others were. The spiritual qi rubbed against each other, making strange sounds. It sounded like stones grinding and there were flashes of lightning. Chapter 661. Spirit come. In the cultivation room, Jiang Tian shouted and waved his hand. Streaks of spiritual qi gathered in the center of his palm, continuously converging and condensing. They were sparkling and translucent like white jade as if they had substance. Spirit qi empowerment. Jiang Tian grabbed a stream of spirit qi and turned around abruptly. Crack. That stream of spirit qi pierced Hu Qingtian's head like a jade knife. Hu Qingtian groaned. His face was pained and blood seeped out of his nostrils. Even though he was half a step away from the immortal state, he could not bear such a violent and surging spirit qi. With the infusion of spirit qi, Hu Qingtian felt that the spirit qi in his body was vigorous to the point of no return. Rumble. He activated his cultivation method and condensed the spirit qi into his body's true qi, which then turned into vital essence and gathered in his acupoints. This is vital essence. This is the vital essence that Master Kong mentioned. It's 10 times or 100 times more condensed. At this moment, Hu Qingtian was pleasantly surprised to find that his cultivation was increasing at a speed that was 100 times or 1,000 times faster than before. It was like 1,000 miles in one step. Crack. Hu Qingtian heard a soft sound in the depths of his mind. It was as if the shackles in the depths of his body had been broken. Sea of Qi opened. Martial artists and cultivators had true qi that was far less condensed and powerful than vital essence. The biggest difference was that martial artists stored true qi and internal force in their bodies, blood essence and meridians. Cultivators, on the other hand, had sea of qi. Their ability to store vital essence was far beyond that of martial artists. The moment sea of qi opened, Hu Qingtian felt that all the cells in his body were cheering and jumping. An unprecedented power filled his body. This violent, surging, and vast power was something that he did not even dare to imagine before. Moreover, vital essence was constantly expanding in the depths of his brain. He was so shocked that he could not help but want to roar to the sky. Your body has entered the immortal realm. According to cultivation, you are now in the middle stage of qi refining. Continue refining. Jiang Tian sent him a message with his soul consciousness, reminding him to take his time to refine and stabilize his body and cultivation base. At the same time, Jiang Tian pulled over 2 streams of vast and condensed spiritual energy and poured them into Wei Feilong and Zhao Yunkuan's heads. Half an hour later, the 3 of them had completely refined all of the spiritual qi and medicinal power, as well as their original true qi. Endless surging true essence crazily surged through his qi sea and meridians, almost bursting his body. Master Kong, I can't take it anymore. Wei Feilong and the rest felt extremely uncomfortable. Their entire bodies were throbbing with pain as if they were being burned by a raging inferno. It was as if their cells were being torn apart. Their minds were frantically surging, and their vision was completely red with stars. At this time, the bodies of the 3 people had already stepped into the deity realm, and they were all 10-fold or even 100-fold stronger than before. However, the biggest difference between the half-step deity realm and the real deity realm was that the soul energy of the deity realm was powerful enough to form a soul energy avatar. This kind of soul energy avatar hadn't reached the level of Yang spirit, which was a pure Yang body and an external body. Although it was invisible, it had a shadow and could interfere with reality and turn it into a soul energy attack, so it was generally called Yin spirit. However, this step of Yin spirit was a natural barrier that prevented thousands of cultivators from entering the deity realm. Countless cultivators couldn't move an inch forward in their entire lives. They were stopped below the deity realm, and those below the deity realm were all ants. Condense. Zhang Tian's eyes lit up and he shouted in his mind. 3 streams of pure soul consciousness came out of the small golden lake in the middle of his forehead and poured into the minds of the 3 people. Zhang Tian was now at the peak of the 7th level of qi refining and was only 1 step away from the 8th level. He had swallowed many spirit servers and devoured their soul energy, so his soul consciousness was vast and surging. A stream of pure soul consciousness was less than 1/10,000th of Zhang Tian's soul consciousness, but it was already unbearable for them. The 3 of them felt as if there was a giant dragon rolling and tearing in their minds. Their brains seemed to be boiling and their skulls were about to explode. They had a splitting headache and felt dizzy. However, a moment later, their memories merged with the pure soul consciousness. Their soul energy was also poured into it and fused with it, finally creating a soul avatar. Zhang Tian's pure soul consciousness was simply a piece of soul energy without any memory or personal imprint. However, it was 10 times more powerful than normal soul energy and was used to help them condense their soul consciousness. Zhang Tian had used the above methods countless times in the cultivation realm and was familiar with them. Of course, he wouldn't make any mistakes. However, for Huqing Tian and the other 2 people, it was like the most dangerous battle of their lives. It was also like riding a roller coaster. They felt as if they had brushed shoulders with the god of death several times. It was frightening. Merge the soul and enter the deity realm. Zhang Tian bellowed. The golden lake at the center of his forehead rippled again. He guided them to use their soul consciousness. Boom, boom, boom. After the 3 of them had successfully performed a cycle of soul consciousness, 3 Xianxia pillars as thick as an arm suddenly burst out from their heads and went straight to the sky. One was 500 meters long, one was 300 meters long, and one was 100 meters long. The sky and the earth changed color. Blue clouds gathered and the wind and clouds were surging. The 3 qi pillars were as magnificent as mountains and forests. They seemed to be able to hold up the sky, condensing qi into pillars and covering the head with blue clouds. This is the sign of the immortal state stage. Elder Hu's qi pillar is 500 meters long. I'm afraid it's still in the middle or late stages of the immortal state stage. The leader has pushed the 3 of them into the immortal state stage in 1 day, no, in 1 hour. That's awesome. Alas, it would be great if I could have the cultivation of the immortal state stage. In the Tai Ching sect, countless people were watching with envy, shock, admiration, and yearning. When will I have half the strength of an immortal state stage cultivator? In the alchemy room, Shin Mange sighed and looked forward to it. He will. Qin Yang said with hope and excitement. Sooner or later, the leader will become the most powerful person on this planet. He will even go to the sky and take us to a higher level. Yes, as long as we work hard and get the leader's approval, we will have a chance to enter the immortal state stage. Yes, everyone will have a chance. However, our sect has gained 3 immortal state stage cultivators in 1 day. I'm afraid that even the semi-hidden sects in Wuxia can't compare with us. Many disciples were in high spirits. They were celebrating as if it was the new year. Old Jiang, you are so discouraging. You can't be like this. Are you just trying to pick a fight with me? Only Zhang Qianlei was very depressed. He wanted to cry but had no tears. That day when he enlightened Yi Zhantian and helped him enter the immortal state, he had been quite proud of it. But now Zhang Tian had forcibly pushed 3 martial artists who were not as talented as Yi Zhantian into the immortal state stage and even the God realm culmination. He felt that he was a failure just by comparing himself to her. Kang Teichu was a monster. After helping Huqing Tian and the other 2 reach the immortal state, Zhang Tian sighed. Since I took the Guizhong Cauldron Elixir and reached the 7th level of Qi refinement stage, I have not made any progress in the past 5 months, even though I have been cultivating diligently. After all, although the Gingjin divine body is powerful, it requires a lot of heavenly materials and earthly treasures for every breakthrough. I am afraid that I will have to borrow the power of the Xingyang Dragon Tiger Elixir to reach the 8th level of Qi refinement stage. Jiang Tian's eyes flashed with a hint of longing. If I am lucky, I can open up a little Dantian and cultivate a little Taoist foundation to reach the half-step of foundation establishment. But in the next moment, Jiang Tian shook his head and sighed. The main ingredient of this elixir is the Xingyang grass. This grass contains a lot of fire energy and can melt the meridians and make the true essence boil. But the Xingyang grass is a mid-grade spirit medicine. It needs to be nourished by the spirit qi of heaven and earth in a place where the 9 suns converge. It is extremely rare in the cultivation world, let alone on earth where the spirit qi is scarce. Thinking of this, Jiang Tian led the few people out of the cultivation room and into the central hall. At this time, everyone had received the order and gathered again. Jiang Tian glanced at the crowd and smiled. I am going to cultivate in seclusion for a few months and break through a bottleneck. But before that, I need to entrust a task. Sect leader, please instruct us. Everyone quickly bowed and said, I need a Xingyang grass. If any of you have or have seen it, report to me immediately if you have any information. A few months ago, Jiang Tian had already prepared the relevant information about the appearance and habits of this grass. Sasaki Haisha had also distributed it. But so far there was no feedback. Jiang Tian's face showed a hint of worry. Then he said firmly, use the power of the entire sect to find out information about this grass. Once there is any news, report it to me immediately. At this time Shin Mange stepped forward and bowed. Master, I have contacted Zhou Xian. He said that there may be only one ancient Wudong left in the world. But Shinnong School and ancient Wudong are both in Hubei province. As the saying goes, 2 tigers cannot live on the same mountain. Their relationship has always been bad. So, ancient Wudong. Hua Qingtian slapped his thigh and said, isn't sect leader's first prodisciple Tang Linglong cultivating there? Why don't you ask her for help? As soon as he said this, everyone became silent. No one said a word and dared to breathe loudly. Some lowered their heads, while others stole glances at Zhao Xueqing. Zhao Xueqing's beautiful eyes moved. She looked at Jiang Tian with a faint smile and took a sip of tea. Shin Mange glared at Hua Qingtian fiercely. She thought to herself, you're touching my sore spot. Jiang Tian's face flashed with a trace of embarrassment. He said non-committally, you guys can leave. I'm going to cultivate in seclusion. If there's nothing important, please don't disturb me. After the meeting, Hua Qingnan pulled Shin Mange and said, Little Shin, what's the matter? Why are you staring at me during the meeting? I owe you money. You don't know. Shin Mange smiled helplessly and whispered a few words in his ear. Hey, isn't it normal for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines? Sect leader is too old-fashioned. Hua Qingtian shook his head and sighed. His admiration and respect for Jiang Tian was needless to say. But when it came to relationships, he always felt that Jiang Tian was not chic enough. Vulgar, what do you know? Master Kong is not an ordinary person. Shin Mange rolled her eyes at him. Yes. How can I compare to sect leader? Hua Qingtian smiled apologetically and then said seriously, however, those who do big things don't care about trifles. This is related to Master Kang's breakthrough in cultivation. I don't care so much, and I don't care what mistress thinks of me. I want to ask Tang Linglong. It's always a glimmer of hope. That's true. I believe that mistress is highly principled and will understand. Shin Mange patted Hua Qingtian's shoulder and praised, if that's the case, I'm a little impressed. Okay, I'll contact Miss Tang now. Hua Qingtian smiled and was quite proud of himself. Chapter 662. Wuxia Province, Wudong Mountain. The majestic mountain was about to run, and the 5 peaks were the heaven-connecting gate. It was said to be the ancient Taoist field of Zhenwu Great Emperor. In Wuxia, the cultivation world had always been known as the Mount Tai and the Big Dipper. It was one of the sources of Taoist spells and was also a famous holy land for martial arts cultivation. At this time, the spiritual energy was dense, and the clouds were lingering high above the clouds. At the back of Wudong Mountain, which was covered by a concealment array, in an ancient palace that was filled with the aura of the vicissitudes of time, a beautiful girl was sitting cross-legged on a futon with bare feet and meditating, breathing in and out spiritual energy. The girl's skin was fair and white and her lips were bright red. Her nose was delicate and her eyebrows were picturesque. If she was in the secular world, she would definitely be a beauty. However, at this time she was wearing a Daoist robe and her hair was tied into a bun. She looked solemn and serene, as if she was a master who had achieved the Tao and was meditating. If there were martial arts masters here, they would definitely cry out in surprise. When the girl took a breath, the wind and clouds rolled, and when she exhaled, it was like white silk across the sky. It was obvious that her cultivation was profound, and she could definitely reach the peak of chi refinement. In the secular world, she would be a peerless master who dominated a region. Thud, thud, thud. There was a trembling knock on the door and a hoarse voice came from outside. "Senior sister, you have a family member here to visit. Let him in." A hint of joy appeared on Tang Linglong's face and she slowly stood up. The door was pushed open and Tang Guizhu walked in slowly with a cane. He shouted, "Linglong. Grandpa, is your illness getting worse? I can't even remember my name. My name is Lingling." Tang Linglong pulled Tang Guizhu's hand and pouted coquettishly. She glanced at the servant disciple who was serving tea and snacks. This disciple had shoulder-length hair and wore a pair of large sunglasses that covered most of his face, but the terrible burn marks could still be seen. This disciple was called Yuan Mingjie. He was usually diligent and taciturn. One could even say that he was dumb. However, Tang Linglong always felt that he was staring at her. "Yeah, I've been suffering from this ever since I got sick." Elder Tang recalled his granddaughter's request and hurriedly corrected himself. "Lingling, why did you ask me to come here? I've been living well in my hometown in Hainan. I'm still not used to living here. It's cold on the mountain." "Junior brother Yuan, there's nothing else. You can go and do other things first," Tang Linglong said with a smile. "Yes, eldest senior sister. If you need anything, just let me know." The handyman disciple named Yuan Mingjie bowed to salute, and then silently left the room. After he left, Tang Linglong revealed her naive expression and cheered, "Brother, I'm so happy. Grandpa, do you know? In 4 months, the sect's grand competition will be held. Master said that this time, the successor will be chosen from our generation of disciples. I have a chance to inherit the orthodoxy and take charge of Wu Dang. Sai, it's still better to follow your master." Tang Guizhu sat down on a chair and sighed. "He's now established a country in Sidonie. It's amazing. He even defeated France." "I know." Tang Linglong smiled bitterly. "But ever since I confessed to Master last time, he's been unwilling to talk to me. I can't catch up to Sister Qinger with the techniques he taught me. Maybe if I join Wu Dang, I'll have a glimmer of hope." "Is it that hard to break your obsession?" Tang Guizhu shook his head and sighed. "I thought you'd be better after practicing Wu Dang's mantra. Even if Fahai were to suppress me under Lei Feng Tower for 10,000 years, I'm afraid I won't be able to change my original heart." Tang Linglong shook her head and said firmly, "He's the first person I love. He'll also be the person I love for the rest of my life." Sigh. Tang Guizhu could only smile bitterly at this. "But Grandpa, do you know? I just received a call. Master needs a stalk of Xingyang grass. Wu Dang has it." Tang Linglong suddenly became excited. She shook her head with her hands behind her back and smiled. "When I become the leader of Wu Dang, I'll have the power in my hands and do whatever I want. I'll open the door of the treasury and say, 'Brother Jiangtian, whatever you need, just take it. It's all yours.'" "You idiot." Tang Guizhu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Even if you become the leader of Wu Dang, you can't do this. You'll be a joke. Besides, Master Kong is so infatuated with Zhao Xueqing. Why do you have to force yourself?" "I want to be like this. I want to force myself. I'll let the world laugh at me." Tang Linglong's eyes turned slightly red. She said stubbornly, "I've heard that he wants Huang Linger as well." There was also Li Jinju, that coquettish fox. Could be seen that he was not an otherworldly saint. "Why can't I?" "Sai, I've also vaguely heard about him and Huang Linger." Tang Guizhu said, "I heard that Master Kong owes her a debt of love, but even now they haven't lived together. As far as I know, the relationship between them is very complicated. They're like teacher, friend, and family, but the love between a man and a woman is very weak. As for Li Jingju, she once asked me to tell you that she has no feelings for Master Kong. I don't care." Tang Linglong suddenly interrupted. She stomped her feet angrily and gritted her teeth. "I know that Huang Linger committed suicide for him, But I can also die for him. This time I'll give him what he wants and make him owe me. Okay, let's not talk about this. Why did you ask me to come all the way here? Knowing that he couldn't persuade his granddaughter, Tang Guizhu asked helplessly. Go to Sidoni and ask my master to come and watch the competition. I want him to see how powerful I am now. Tang Linglong smiled sweetly. No, Sidoni, we're thousands of miles away. My old arms and legs can't walk anymore. Elder Tang deliberately shook his head and said, Grandpa, if you don't go, I'll go on a hunger strike in front of you. I'll starve your favorite granddaughter to death. Tang Linglong threatened. Fine, I'll go. Elder Tang smiled helplessly. That's good. Tang Linglong suddenly smiled and said seriously, don't tell him the truth. But don't tell him about the Xingyang grass. I want to give him a big surprise. After chatting for a while, Tang Linglong sent her grandpa down the mountain. She returned to the main hall. She found Yuan Mingjie was tidying up the dishes and smiled sweetly. Junior Mingjie, thank you for your hard work. Senior sister Lingling, this is your junior brother's responsibility. He smiled humbly and bowed as he carried the tray out of the door and closed it. However, the moment he stepped out of the door, a trace of deep resentment suddenly appeared in his eyes. The monstrous hatred seemed to be able to burn the heavens. Tang Linglong, you think you're so smart? Do you think you can hide it from me? However, you'll never know that the servant disciple next to you is Nie Mingyuan, who has a deep hatred for your master. The servant disciple Yuan Mingjie was Nie Mingyuan, the son of Nie Zhonghai, the crown prince of the Nie family, one of the top 3 families in Jinling. At that time, Jiang Tian ordered the Heaven Alliance to destroy the Nie family and set fire to the Nie family's villa. 80% of his body was severely burned. He was very lucky. Nie Xueman arrived in time. After he was sent to Wu Dang, sect leader Qin Omping saved his life with a superior-grade life-prolonging pill. For 3 months his body was filled with pus and his flesh was rotten. Blood and pus soaked the bandages. Severe pain, infections, screaming, high fever and fainting several times a day. Nie Mingyuan died countless times. He was completely disfigured. Half of his face was normal when he was lying on the ground. His sharp eyebrows and bright eyes could still be seen. However, the other half of his face was completely burned. There was a big hole in his cheek revealing his white teeth. There were strange lumps and potholes everywhere. One of his ears was gone. When he looked in the mirror for the first time, he was so scared that he fainted. Because it didn't look like a human's face at all. It was more like a pile of pink minced meat mixed with fat. After a few stirring, it was smeared on his face. Regret, anger, hatred, and pain tore at his heart. His heart had been shattered for a very long time. However, gradually, that heart healed and formed a heart 10 times stronger than before. Become stronger. Revenge. Even if I sell my soul to the devil, I will become stronger and kill Jiang Tian. Nie Mingyuan roared in anger and hatred on the hospital bed. Hatred grew crazily in his heart, almost bursting his originally narrow heart. After 4 months of inhuman pain, Nie Mingyuan gradually recovered and was able to get out of bed and walk. After getting out of bed for the first time, he crawled to Qin Omping with his walking stick, dragging a few hundred meters of blood behind him. He kowtowed 3 times and 9 times, kowtowing until his forehead was bleeding. He begged Qin Omping to let him stay in Wudong sect. Wudong sect is one of the 6 most hidden sects in the world. If you want to join the sect, you either have to give tens of millions or hundreds of millions of offerings, or make great contributions and support to the sect. What right do you have to stay? At that time, Qin Omping waved his sleeve and said proudly, if you want to stay, then start as a servant disciple. There are some old monsters with strange tempers in the cliff cave. They are much more terrifying than Kong Techu. You will be in charge of serving those old monsters. Is that okay? This disciple is willing. Thank you, sect master, for taking me in. Nie Mingyuan kowtowed and thanked him without hesitation. 2 streams of blood flowed out of his eyes. He was burned all over and he was like a cripple. His family was destroyed and he had nothing left. Not to mention joining Wudong sect, one of the 6 most hidden sects in the world, he was worse than a beggar on the street. As long as he could stay, as long as he could cultivate, as long as he could become stronger, as long as he could kill Jiang Tian, he was willing to reduce his lifespan by 10 years, let alone serving others. However, he was secretly shocked. What kind of monsters lived in the cliff cave that were even more terrifying than Kong Techu? What kind of person was Qin Omping? Yet even Qin Anping was somewhat fearful of them. This was like a joke. The top of the cliff was a mountain behind Wudong Training Hall. The cliff was extremely steep and it was as flat as a mirror. It was more than 2,000 meters high and it was lofty and dangerous. When Ye Mingyuan stood at the foot of the mountain for the first time, he felt as insignificant as an ant. However, if someone looked down from space, they might think that the majestic mountain was just a small stone or an ant's nest covered in moss. When Ye Mingyuan reached the cliff cave along the narrow mountain path that could only allow one person to pass, he was really shocked. He did not expect to see such a shocking scene in his life. Chapter 663. Within a radius of a few hundred meters, there were countless small caves. When people entered, they would not even be able to straighten their backs. Every cave was connected to each other. There were countless of them, just like an ant's nest. But after entering, one would discover a completely different world. On the smooth and flat stone walls, there were large murals painted in gold. Flying creatures, mythical beasts, spiritual birds, flowers, birds, insects, fish. The colors were magnificent and the ink was exquisite. On the top of every cave, there was a luminous pearl that was overflowing with light. The steps carved from jade were sparkling and translucent. It was actually made of ice-type jade and the edges were pasted with gold leaf. These murals, luminous pearls, and even the gold leaf, if taken out, each of them would be worth millions. Even if he was once the young master of the Nye family and enjoyed all the glory and wealth, he rarely saw them. In each of the hundreds of death cells in the caves, there were some strange people living there. Perhaps because they were imprisoned for too long, they were already half human and half ghost, but they seemed to be very strong. When he reached the innermost part of the nest, Ye Mingyuan saw an even more shocking scene. Blood pool. In a cave cell there was a huge blood pool with a radius of 10 meters. The blood in the pool did not have the slightest ripple, as if it had solidified. It was so thick that it was black and the smell of blood was suffocating. Beside the blood pool there was a tall man sitting there. This person's curly golden hair and beard covered his face, and it was so long that it touched the ground. Perhaps because it had not been washed for too long, it had already become clumps of hair. Only now did Ye Mingyuan understand why his senior brother gave him a big bottle of fresh blood that had just been drawn from the cicadere before he came up the mountain. Trembling with fear, he went forward and carefully handed it over. That person did not move at all, sitting there like a dead tree. Hee trash. All useless trash. Suddenly, an ear-piercing strange laughter like the cry of an owl sounded behind Ye Mingyuan. Ye Mingyuan was so scared that he fell to the ground, but he saw an even more terrifying scene. In the cave opposite the blood pool prison, on a high platform paved with countless pieces of brightly colored tiger skin, sat an old man with a withered face. This old man had chicken skin and crane head and all his hair was gone. His toothless mouth was shriveled, and his ribs were clearly protruding like steep and cold mountain peaks. What was even more terrifying was that he had no limbs and even no buttocks. It should be said that his torso had been slashed by a sharp weapon from below his chest. His face was decaying and covered with grayish-brown age spots. He was lifeless and had no signs of life. Only the occasional round of his eyes proved that he was a living creature. He was obviously very short like the bark of a tree, but he gave people a feeling of arrogance and disdain. It was as if everything in the world was but an ant in his eyes. Here. Your food. At that time Ye Mingyuan suppressed his fear and crawled up. He handed over a porcelain bowl with a steamed bun and a bowl of water. Qin Anping gives me a steamed bun and a bowl of water every year. I'd rather not have them. The old man cackled strangely. His voice was like a knife cutting through the bottom of a pot, ear-piercing and dry. His eyes suddenly shot out a sharp, cruel and crazy light that seemed to have materialized. Bang! The porcelain bowl in Ye Mingyuan's hand shattered into pieces. Later, Ye Mingyuan finally realized that the old man's meridians and acupoints had long been damaged. At this time his gaze had shattered his porcelain bowl. He had only relied on pure mental strength, a real earth immortal. Later on he even found out that the old man had not eaten for decades. Every day he absorbed some water vapor, the spiritual energy in the luminous pearls and jade to nourish his body. He also did not have an excretory system. He used some kind of secret method to force the impurities out of his body. When Ye Mingyuan had a better understanding of cultivation, he was even more amazed by the old man's various magical powers. Nie Mingyuan had been with them for a long time and gradually understood their temperament. The old man had a clear mind and liked to inquire about the outside world. He chattered and occasionally said a few words of wisdom. The blonde man called him the brainless Daoist. The blonde man was very strong. He often smashed boulders with a punch and often went berserk in the cage. However, his mind was fuzzy and his eyes were dull like a fool. The old man liked to call him the four-legged monster. It sounded funny, but it actually contained an extremely cruel and tragic taste. Once, Nie Mingyuan had mentioned this old man to Nie Xian in admiration. According to the records, martial artists absorb the spiritual energy of plants and elixirs to refine their bodies. Sorcerers control the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and borrow external forces to form their own strength. But I have never heard of a technique that directly absorbs the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, or even the spiritual energy in jade, and transforms it into one's own aura to condense one's cultivation. Mingyuan, don't be bewitched by him. He has already fallen into the demonic path. Nie Xian warned him sternly. As cultivators, we are still humans. Humans need to eat the 5 grains and miscellaneous grains. Of course, humans can only refine the spiritual energy of heaven and earth contained in living things. This is the law of nature, the law of heaven. It can't be violated at all. Even if you are a powerful cultivator, even if you have a flawless Taoist body, even if you have reached the legendary Inidia realm, you can only go without food for a dozen years. How can humans eat the aura of minerals as food? In the long run, the body and soul will be polluted by the impurities of heaven and earth, and become neither human nor ghost. Neither human nor ghost is a demon. That is falling into the demonic path. When Nie Mingyuan heard this, he didn't think much of it. Cultivation is naturally to become stronger. So what if you are a human, a ghost, a demon, or a demon? As long as you are a powerhouse. What is a powerhouse? That is a person who can kill and trample on others. That is enough. However, on the surface he still nodded in agreement. Then he asked curiously, "What is the background of this old man?" "I don't know." Nie Xian shook her head and said, "I heard that when the sect leader entered the sect at the age of 8, this old man was already there. Later, that monster who likes to drink blood was stuffed into the sect to accompany him. It is said that the Brain Taoist is a powerhouse from the Daoguang era of the Qing dynasty. His origin is unknown. He once destroyed more than a dozen large sects, including Wudong, Tianshan, Kunlun, and Demei, in a year with only one sword. Blood flowed like a river. The cultivation world was frightened by his name. Later, more than a dozen immortal state warriors and human immortals joined forces and used many magical treasures to suppress him here. Compared to him, Kong Teichu is still far from being able to defeat him. Rumor has it that he came from the arcane land, or the ruins of immortals. But it is just a rumor. No one knows the real situation. He is an old monster who has lived for 200 years. On one hand, Nie Mingyuan was shocked by the strength of this person. On the other hand, he vaguely understood why Qin Omping asked him to be the servant disciple who cleaned the nest behind the mountain and delivered food and blood. He longed for revenge and wanted to become stronger. He was also the person who was most likely to get the inheritance of the monster's unique skill. However, things didn't go as smoothly as Nie Mingyuan expected. When he first asked to be apprenticed to the Brain Taoist laughed. "You're too weak." Brain Daoist sneered. Nie Mingyuan didn't know what was going on. He looked at him in confusion. The Brain Taoist's eyes burst out with needle-like light. Then it became bigger and bigger and it turned into flames. Nie Mingyuan felt an extreme heat. This was a real flame. The Brain Taoist raised his thin neck. His veins and blood vessels bulged like earthworms. He shouted desperately, "You don't have any cultivation base. You don't have the foundation to cultivate. You're trash, an ant, a worm. I am a piece of trash now, but not forever." Nie Mingyuan knelt on the ground. His eyes were calm and deep like a deep pool. He was as gentle as water but also as hard as water. A piece of trash is a piece of trash. All the humans on earth are worms. I am a member of the Heavenly Lord race. I am here to suppress everything, but you turned me into a worm when I was not prepared. Ridiculous worms. His voice became louder and louder like thunder. It was full of murderous energy and contained the power to destroy the world. He shouted, laughed and cried crazily as if he were going to shatter the stars. destroy the earth and kill thousands of people. The golden murals cracked and then peeled off like butterflies. The entire cliff cave trembled as if a magnitude 8 earthquake had occurred. Blood spurted out of Nie Mingyuan's 7 orifices. He flew more than 10 meters away and fell to the ground. He was unconscious for 3 days before he woke up. He felt that the brain Taoist was so powerful that he was almost a god. So he went to the brain Taoist every day to help him clean his body. He kowtowed and begged him to teach him supreme techniques. But the old man still did not agree. He only mocked him every day, but he would never teach him any techniques. In 4 months, the sect competition will be held. Kang Techu might come. Nie Mingyuan threw the memories of the humiliation and pain from the past few days out of his mind. His eyes were full of anger. It was as if the hatred in his eyes could pierce through his sunglasses. Jiang Tianyi demon. You killed my parents and destroyed my family. If I don't kill you, I am not a human. I have taken care of those 2 monsters for a year. I hope there will be a turn for the better today. They will teach me something. Thinking of this, he limped towards the cliff cave at the back of the sect with quick footsteps. He helped the 2 of them clean their bodies, chatted with them about anything under the sun, and carried out their excrement and urine. Just as Nie Mingyuan was about to leave, disappointed that this was another fruitless day, the golden-haired monster finally stuttered, "Brain, I have a way to turn the food delivery guy into a powerful being." "A powerful being with all brawn and no brains like you?" The brain Taoist sneered disdainfully. Qin Onping's master suppressed your mind with the 3 souls and 6 spirits of a few people. You have become an idiot. Yes, my spiritual power has been destroyed. The 4-legged monster stuttered. But my Duke-level blood race body is very powerful. My physical body, your spiritual power. Combined, we will create a true immortal. 4-legged monster. If you do this, your spiritual power will be suppressed forever. This is an extremely difficult decision, isn't it? The brain Taoist laughed sinisterly. The 4-legged monster's eyes were dull and empty. But is there any other way? The brain Taoist looked at Nie Mingyuan and laughed even more sinisterly. Food delivery guy, your spiritual power is also suppressed. It is very likely that you are both my physical body. Think carefully. Chapter 664. Nie Mingyuan didn't seem to understand the meaning of these words. He hurriedly kowtowed and said, "Godfathers, please help me cultivate a supreme technique and avenge my dead parents." Have you thought of a question? Brain Daoist looked at Nie Mingyuan with great interest and laughed strangely. If your soul becomes mine and your body is reformed from the blood pool, will you still be yourself? Nie Mingyuan's body trembled and he was silent for a long time. Finally, he gritted his teeth and said coldly with tears in his eyes, "Even if you take over my soul, I won't hesitate. I only want one thing from you. Kill Kang Techu and avenge me." Interesting, really interesting. Humans are really interesting. Brain Daoist laughed wildly and tears streamed down his face. The miserable and despairing laughter shook the entire cave, and the other experts in the cell trembled in fear. "I can help you. According to you, Jiang should be an immortal cultivator, not a human from Earth." Brain Daoist suddenly stopped laughing and shook his head with a contemptuous look. "However, I can kill him. But this cell..." Nie Mingyuan stood up and looked at the strange blonde man's cell with a distressed expression. These bars were as thick as a human's thigh and made of bronze. They were mottled with green rust and were obviously quite old. There were mysterious and strange runes carved on them. According to the disciples of the same sect, the 2 ends of each bronze pillar were embedded hundreds of meters deep into the rocks above and below, and there was no key at all. He definitely didn't have the ability to open them. Perhaps even an immortal state expert couldn't open them. This was because the strange blonde man's strength had obviously surpassed many legendary immortal state experts, but he had never tried to move those bronze pillars. He had once seen him accidentally touch a bronze pillar. Suddenly, the flames burned brightly and a large area of his skin sizzled as if he was being roasted. "Isn't it easy to open these?" Brain Daoist laughed. Whoosh. He just focused his eyes. Streaks of silver light formed several patterns that floated out from his gloomy eyes. Pop-up. Several silver patterns hit the bronze pillars. Buzz buzz buzz. The bronze pillars shone brightly and then quickly dimmed. At this moment, Nie Mingyuan suddenly felt that some kind of power contained in the bronze pillars seemed to have disappeared. The four-legged monster stood up lazily and casually slammed his shoulder forward like the mountain lean of the eight extremities fist. Boom. In a loud noise, the bronze pillars caved in and formed a hole that allowed one person to pass through. Nie Mingyuan only then did he realize that the two monsters had the ability to get out. The reason why they didn't go out was that they didn't want to go out. Come in. Enter the blood pool. The four-legged monster said. Nie Mingyuan walked into the cell and looked to the blood pool to the blood. That strange blood pool was as calm as a mirror without the slightest ripple. However, he couldn't see what was hidden inside. He only felt that it was abnormally eerie and terrifying. Let me remind you too. Brain heads to the pool, twos to the blood to the heaven, twos and to the blood, beha, ants. T to the to him, twos to be to him. Two is to that. At the end of the Qing dynasty, Qin Anping's senior brother wanted to break through and stepped into the blood pool. He did become very powerful and reached the level of Earth-level deity. Unfortunately, he only lived for half a year before his body exploded and he died. There's also a big risk. Your new body will reject each other and not be strong enough. My powerful divine will might burst your head. 9 out of 10, do you understand? Even if it's a narrow escape, I'm willing to give it a try. Nie Mingyuan's eyes flashed with a hint of viciousness. Father, mother, little Feng. I won't let you die in vain. I will tear Jiang Tian Yiziwei and the rest of the Jiang family into pieces. He walked slowly toward the blood pool. Brain had only flicked his tongue and didn't say anything else. The four-legged monster's face flashed with a hint of anticipation. But when he reached the blood pool, Nie Mingyuan subconsciously stopped in his tracks. He knew that once he stepped in there was no turning back. Nie Mingyuan would no longer exist in this world. But if he didn't go down, there was no turning back. Jiang Tian was simply too strong. He could advance 1,000 miles with a single step. It was said that he had already stepped into the half-step human immortal realm. With Wudong's cultivation methods and his talent, even if he cultivated for 10 lifetimes, he wouldn't be able to catch up to Jiang Tian. If he didn't suppress Jiang Tian's strength, how would he be able to avenge his parents? How would he have the face to visit his parents' graves? How would he have the face to stand in this world? He would be tortured for the rest of his life. Nie Mingyuan slowly took off his clothes, revealing his severely deformed torso. Hideous and terrifying scars that resembled centipedes overlapped and crisscrossed all over his body. Fush. Blood splattered everywhere. Nie Mingyuan stepped into the blood pool and then took another step. As soon as his foot touched the ground, a thin stream of blood flowed up his calf as if it was alive. The blood was crystal clear like a ruby carving. It also looked like the tentacles of a mollusk. They twisted and turned in an instant and clung tightly to his skin as if they could fuse with the blood in his body. Nie Mingyuan's body seemed to be covered with blood tattoos. Looked strange and terrifying. At first, Nie Mingyuan didn't feel anything. He even thought that the so-called blood pool was a prank by the two old monsters. But suddenly he felt as if leeches were drilling into his skin. It was so painful that he gritted his teeth, opened his mouth and howled miserably. Whoosh. The blood pool surged and numerous ferocious and resentful faces struggled and roared in the blood pool, changing rapidly. The blood flowed faster and faster, gradually forming a blood curtain that covered Nie Mingyuan. In the end, a thick black-red gelatinous blood rose into the air like a python and drilled into his wide-open mouth. Pain. At this moment, Nie Mingyuan suddenly felt as if his skin was being torn apart, as if there was a fire burning. Pain. It was as if tens of thousands of steel knives were stirring up his internal organs. Pain. Pain to the bone marrow. It was as if countless leeches and poisonous snakes drilled into the depths of his bones, drinking his blood and sucking his marrow. Ah! It's so painful. Even if he was prepared to die, Nie Mingyuan couldn't bear the pain. He fell into the blood pool and struggled and rolled, causing waves of blood. He howled to the sky. Suddenly the screams stopped. He fainted. The blood in the blood pool rushed into his body at an extremely high speed. It became empty, leaving only Nie Mingyuan lying there. But at this moment, Nie Mingyuan's scars suddenly disappeared. His skin was as smooth as a newborn baby's. It was rosy and glowing. The holes and burns on his face were gone, and one of his ears had grown out. At this moment he looked even more handsome than before. It was just that he was a little more sinister and demonic. So now it's time for us to compete? Boom. The four-legged monster suddenly stood up. With a movement, his body suddenly stood upright like a lonely peak, like a peerless sword. His demonic eyes shone brightly and his blood was surging. Should I call you Brain, Heavenly Lord, or your Taoist name Wu Dozi, the 33rd Deputy Leader of Kunlun? You've already cultivated a soul avatar. How long do you want to pretend? At this moment he seemed to be dominating the world. There was no longer the dull and crazy look in his eyes. You're also hiding your strength, okay? You're not four limbs or a Duke kindred. You're blood soul, green, one of the 8 blood ancestors in Europe. The Brain Taoist laughed. Suddenly his eyes flashed and spirit chi of heaven and earth surged. The spirit chi of heaven and earth immediately formed the bones, muscles, veins, nerves and fascia of the 4 limbs. In the end, his skin and hair covered his body and he became a handsome man like a scholar of the Qing dynasty. Then he took a step forward. It was just a simple step. Plang. The bronze pillars that were as thick as bowls lost all their magical power before they could even touch his body. They snapped like frail twigs and scattered in all directions as if they had been blown apart by high-explosive gunpowder. Mind Daoist, or perhaps he should be called Heavenly Lord Wu Dozi now, sneered sinisterly. Green, your soul power has never been suppressed by them. You just can't break the seal of the bronze pillars. You've been waiting for decades for me to open this door for you. What a good plan. Blood Soul Green sneered. You deliberately suppressed the soul avatar that can support the broken body to make me think that you don't have much possibility of seizing control of the body. In the end, let me use the blood in the blood pool to condense a body that you can easily occupy. Now that the body has been formed, let's have a fair fight and see your supreme Taoist power. As soon as he finished speaking, a bloody divine soul shadow broke out of his body and turned into a bright red light, drilling into Nieming Yuan's mind. Ugly thing, don't be so arrogant. This body furnace is mine. Wu Daozi roared. His whole body turned into a green light along with his soul power. Whoosh. It drilled into Nieming Hai's mind. 2 divine souls, one red and one green, like 2 lightning bolts, quickly swam in the depths of Nieming Hai's mind and fought back and forth. Nieming Yuan was unconscious and could only vaguely hear the 2 cursing. Wu Daozi, you're going to lose. Your soul will soon scatter. Huh. Blood Soul Green grinned. Whoosh. Green's bloody divine soul, like a spark, drilled into Nieming Yuan's nerve center. Heaven wants me, Wu Dozi. I didn't expect you to practice the blood soul secret art. Wu Dozi's divine soul looked up to the sky and cried out. He had waited bitterly for 100 years with Green for 200 years, and finally found a suitable body furnace. But he didn't expect Green to practice the blood soul secret art. The early bird catches the worm and takes the initiative. Once Nieming Yuan's body was occupied, his divine soul would lose the nourishment of his blood soul and would slowly be worn out, unable to condense again. Death of the body. Death of the soul. For a practitioner, this was the true meaning of death. How could this be? This kid's divine soul is so strong. I'm going to be swallowed. Green's divine soul exclaimed, like a frightened rabbit retreating, rushing out of the mind. Chapter 665. Bang. He was hit by the inner wall of his mind and almost shattered. Green turned pale with fright and roared, I can't get out. I can't get out. How can this be? I clearly left a blood soul primer in my main body. This is a soul devourer. He is actually a suppressing hell demonic body. Wu Dozi's soul turned pale with fright, and his eyes widened as he couldn't help but exclaim. In the depths of Nieming Yuan's mind, between the red and black chaotic fog, a demonic soul as tall as a mountain appeared. This soul wore a set of dark purple armor, on which there were several extremely sharp boned spurs, exuding a dense cold light. From the back of the tendons and bones drilled out 9 black demonic heads, snake heads, ghost heads, dragon heads, beast heads. Violent and ferocious roars, dancing in the air, tumbling and changing in an instant. This demonic soul towered into the clouds, indomitable and indomitable. Under the tall body, Green and Wu Dozi's souls were like 2 little chicks at the foot of a mountain. Looking at his face, it was extremely handsome and the lines were as if carved by a knife and an axe. It was 80% similar to Nieming Yuan's face, but there was a faint sense of evil. In particular, his eyes were extremely resentful, as if there was a hatred that could swallow the heavens and destroy the earth. His lips were slightly thin and he looked cruel and ruthless. On top of his head, there were two long horns curved into a spiral shape, and a trace of blue lightning flashed between the two horns. It seemed that this soul's momentum was enormous, just like the demons that came from the Nine Serenities hell. Revenge. Revenge. Revenge for my parents, revenge for Feng, revenge for the Nye family. This demonic soul's eyes flowed with tears of blood, and his hatred was monstrous. Step by step he approached the two souls in the corner of his mind. The armor on his body clanged loudly, and every step he took caused the earth to shake and the mountains to shake. The shaking shook Green and Wu Dozi's souls, and they were almost destroyed. This demonic soul suddenly roared to the sky, gritting his teeth ferociously. I want to strengthen myself and kill Kong Teichu. Hate. Too much hate. I want to kill all the people in the world, the ugly humans. His bony hand reached out and grabbed Grimm's soul like an eagle grabbing a chick. His mouth suddenly opened up to his ears, revealing his white fangs. Its blood-red tongue licked the long drool that flowed out of its mouth as it roared. It's a little dirty soul, but it's very powerful. I want it. Grimm's soul had no power to resist. He was so scared that he could not stop crying. Demon Lord, don't kill me. I submit. From now on, I am your most loyal servant. I know a lot of cultivation secret realms in Europe. I can tell you all about them. I am your most loyal servant. Wu Daozi's divine soul also scrambled to kneel and submit. Demon Lord, please spare my life. I'm a remnant soul from the celestial venerate race from the outer realm. Please don't kill me. With your physique, only by imparting the cultivation technique to you will you be able to fully utilize it. Really? From then on all of you will be my slaves. The demon lord hesitated for a moment. In the end his armor clanged as he flung Matt's divine soul to the ground. I feel very weak. I'm going to rest for a while. He went into the depths of Grimm's mind again. Nieming Yuan's mind quieted down. The two divine souls huddled together, looking at the terrible demon lord with fear and worry. They did not dare to say a word. The sun and the moon alternated. The light in the cave was sometimes bright and sometimes dark. After an unknown period of time, Nieming Yuan took a deep breath and opened his eyes in a daze. The sharp pain in his body had disappeared. But the scenes before and after the coma were particularly clear, flashing in front of his eyes like a slideshow. What kind of physique do I have? The demon body of purgatory. He rumbled. He stood up with a sound, his face wild with joy. He was so excited that the corners of his mouth twitched crazily. Then he suddenly straightened his body, exuding a monstrous demonic aura, and shouted sternly. Wu Dozi, old servant Grimm, what kind of cultivation technique is suitable for me to practice? Quickly tell me a set. He flicked his sleeves and his face suddenly became incomparably cold. Otherwise die. There seems to be a lot of resentment. Who hates me so much? Jiang Tian, who was thousands of miles away, suddenly opened his eyes with a trace of uneasiness in his heart. But he did not realize that a great enemy that was about to bring him great trouble was born. He was still immersed in cultivation. And according to Jiang Tian's order, the Sidoni government announced another important news. The Medicine King Group announced a new strategy, the Longevity Industry Plan. The Saint Origin Immortal Healing Village developed by Sidoni began to recruit villagers from all over the world. The conditions were extremely harsh. Personal wealth of more than $10 billion, or they could pay at least $100 million in rent, or they had special talents recognized by the Sidoni government. The effect of the Immortal Healing Village. Ms. Zhang Wanqing, the president of the Medicine King Group, said confidently, common diseases would disappear within a month of residence. Patients with terminal cancer and other declared terminal diseases would have their lifespan extended by at least 10 years. Healthy people after 10 years of residence would be over 120 years old even if they left. When the news came out, the whole world was shocked. Many people were skeptical and couldn't believe it. Even the best medical treatment could not guarantee a person's lifespan to 120 years old. But the Medicine King Group had such confidence. It was like a myth. The Medicine King Group announced that they had led many companies to set up the Medicine King Health Insurance Company. If a healthy resident who had lived here for 10 years passed away before the age of 120, The insurance company would compensate them $1 billion. Those who did not achieve the promised effect would be compensated with 2 to 3 times the amount. At the press conference, the Medicine King Group also announced the first batch of villagers in the Immortal Healing Village. The list included Marshall Wooding, Paris Hilton, Facebook founder Mike, and dozens of other top American tycoons. Sidoni had also teamed up with Wuxia's biggest online streaming platform WatchMe to create a reality TV show called The Effect Is This Magical? The show featured Hollywood star and handsome Tom Cruise, international socialite Paris Hilton, honorary dean of Harvard Medical School Professor George, South Korean star Lee Adian, and the CEO of the Ku Group Andrew and other villagers. The Ku Group was the world's largest provider of network solutions with a market value of $80 billion. It was one of the top 500 companies in the world. The founder, Andrew, had a net worth of $20 billion in 2009 and was one of the top 10 richest people in the world. However, Andrew was diagnosed with liver cancer 3 years ago and was in the final stage. Washington Hospital had given him a notice of critical illness. When he moved into the Immortal Healing Village, he was on the verge of death. He was skinny and his skin was dull. He was carried out of a private plane by the medical staff and was brought into the village in a wheelchair. When the show started, Professor George, a famous American doctor and the chairman of the Nobel Prize in Medicine Committee, said to the camera, "I don't believe that the Immortal Healing Village has such an effect. If it does, I can only say that the Immortal Healing Village has made history. It can even change the course of human civilization." "Why did you participate in this show?" Village elder Yi Ziwei asked with a smile. "That was to expose your conspiracy. This is a scam. The biggest scam in the world," Professor George shouted. Of course, this was for the show's effect. Professor George knew that the effect of the Immortal Healing Village would definitely be as good as expected. Celebrities, socialites, internet giants, billion-dollar entry fee, Li Jinju's mysterious double identity, Iris's scandal, the miraculous effect of the Immortal Healing Village, the angry condemnation of the Harvard Medical School professor. Every one of them was eye-catching and eye-catching. Very soon this topic was hyped to the point of explosion. The number of registered users of the Look at Me video kept increasing. 10 million, 20 million, 50 million. It reached an astonishing 400 million in a week and its valuation broke through $10 billion. Zhang Yilin, Chen Jiafu, Yuan Ning, and the others who invested in the live streaming platform were overjoyed. However, under the eyes of the global audience, the number of Andrew's cancer cells kept decreasing. Within 3 days he could eat normally. Within a week he could get out of bed and walk. Within a month all the cancer cells disappeared. Andrew in the camera was full of energy and his face was rosy. He hunted, rode horses, baked cakes for his wife and children and was full of smiles. It was as if he was a different person. This is unbelievable. This is a miracle, a medical miracle. No, it should be a miracle. On the screen, Professor George waved the checklist and shouted in disbelief. "Thank you to the Immortal Healing Village, thank you to the builders of Sidoni. You've given me precious health." In the last episode of the first season of the reality show, Andrew held his wife's hand in front of the camera and cried emotionally. "My parents gave me my first life, and Sidoni and the Immortal Healing Village gave me my second life. Sidoni will be my second home and the Immortal Healing Village will be my beautiful home. I will never leave this place and I will contribute to the development of Sidoni and the village." Cancer can be cured? The Immortal Healing Village is amazing. Yes, the medicine from the Medicine King Group must be very effective. This is a miraculous medicine from the East. Everyone in the audience also exclaimed in disbelief. Within a month, more than 3,000 global tycoons flocked to Sidoni and signed up to stay at the Immortal Healing Village. This was especially so for the upstarts in Silicon Valley. The entire Silicon Valley was almost empty. In Luyu wine cellar, Jiang Tian had left a lot of elixirs and Dharma artifacts for Marshall. Marshall had given them to many of his close allies as gifts. Many technology giants had already known about the miraculous effects of the Immortal Healing Village. They had just witnessed another miracle. They had bought land in the north of San Juan and started to build factories. In just 2 months they had built a new Silicon Valley that was 3 times larger than the original. The world was in an uproar. Silicon Valley is gone. The pearl of American technology has been taken by Sidoni. This will be a disaster for the American technology industry. This is the largest industrial migration in the history of the world. One after another, sensational headlines appeared on the BBC, Associated Press, Wall Street Journal, The Times and other media outlets. The media was like a shark that had smelled blood. They rushed to report and pay attention to this major event. Chapter 666. After the new century, America's traditional manufacturing industry had gradually moved overseas. Their high-tech industry was the foundation of their survival. Now their high-tech industry cluster was moving to Sidoni. This had a profound impact on America. The U.S. Trade Representative and the Department of Commerce were shocked. They imposed strict checks and restrictions on these companies. However, the California Consortium had great influence in the U.S. Congress and the judicial system. The transfer of assets was relatively smooth. In addition, Sidoni also made some kind of compromise. Both sides had a diplomatic negotiation. President Xianxia said that Sidoni's Domestic Medicine King Group and many other companies hoped and planned to set up subsidiaries in America to export their capital to achieve a balance between bilateral trade and balance sheets. This was to save President Bush some face. America was only a representative. In England, France, the EU countries, Japan, South Korea, Wuxia, many rich people from many countries were fighting to immigrate to Sidoni. So much so that it became a trend for the world's upper class to immigrate to Sidoni or live in the Immortal Healing Village. Compared to becoming a villager in the Immortal Healing Village, racing horses, buying private jets, yachts, sports cars and Prada became extremely unattractive. The transfer of America's high-tech industry has only affected America. But you have neglected a more serious and fundamental problem. At this time, the Immortal Healing Village's henchman, the chairman of the Nobel Prize in Medicine Committee, Professor George, posted angrily on the internet. This kind of longevity technology that can only be enjoyed by a small number of rich people is like human hibernation and gene editing technology. It is a serious violation of fairness. Humanity, which was originally a community with a shared future, is now divided into two parts: long-lived humans and short-lived humans. Long-lived humans can extend their lives indefinitely with their wealth and longevity technology. They can enjoy more advanced technology and life in the future without any effort. As soon as the statement came out, the whole world was in an uproar. Professor George's words made sense. Not everyone wanted to live in the Immortal Healing Village. The starting price of $100 million was enough to keep 9,999% of the world's population out. The current gap between the rich and the poor was already intolerable and infuriating. That would create a huge gap in the quality of life and lifespan in the future. And this gap was created by Medicine King Group and the Immortal Healing Village. At this time, Medicine King Group held another press conference to announce their second strategy, global strategy. More than a dozen of the Medicine King Group's hit products would be launched in Europe and North America on a large scale, and then in most countries around the world. We will allocate 30% of the profits from the Immortal Healing Village to offset the cost of the Medicine King Group's products and lower the selling price. We hope that all of humanity can enjoy health and longevity. Ms. Zhang Wanqing said this at the press conference. With the endorsement of the miraculous effects of the Immortal Healing Village, the products of the Medicine King Group swept the world like a hot knife through butter. There was a long queue in front of all the pharmacies. The citizens brought their bedding and tents and queued up without sleep just to buy 1 or 2 boxes of Medicine King Group's products. London out of stock. California was out. Almost all the products were out of stock. However, the townsfolk were still unwilling to leave for a long time. They stood outside the various pharmacies waiting for the products to arrive quickly. The Medicine King Group is really amazing. This was the first time in the history of medicine. They created history. An observer of the pharmaceutical industry exclaimed. Compared to the fruit powder, it seems like the medicinal powder is even crazier. How does gang leader Chow feel? Are you envious? Someone secretly tagged Fruit Gang leader Chow on Twitter. No. I'm very happy. In fact, I've already become the second batch of villagers of the Immortal Healing Village and participated in the second season of the Miraculous Effects medical reality show. Jobs said. He also had pancreatic cancer. If Andrew could cure it in the Immortal Healing Village, of course he had hope too. Many factors added fuel to the fire, and the Medicine King Group's reputation spread all over the world. There was a surge in sales one after another. In just 4 months, the Medicine King Group's name spread all over the world. The company's valuations surpassed global pharmaceutical giants like Glaxo and Pfizer, and they became the world's #1 pharmaceutical company. Thanks to the Immortal healing village, Sidonie also became the world's most attractive country for immigrants in just a few months. It surpassed the United States and became the world's #1 country. Without a doubt, this is the greatest economic miracle since the Second Industrial Revolution. Sidonie, the world's poorest country, became the world's 6th most powerful country in a year. The Wall Street Journal declared excitedly, "Facts have proven that Sidonie not only has a strong military, but it will also become the world's most dynamic economy. Sidonie's health industry is almost unrivaled and irreplaceable in the world." The New York Times article was full of confidence. Seeing Sidonie's burst of economic vitality, we have reason to believe that the health and longevity industry will surpass the internet, artificial intelligence and big data, and become the 21st century's most powerful economic growth point. The UK's The Sun devoted an entire page to the St. Origin Immortal Healing Village. They were not stingy with their praise. The gung metal divine body is indeed powerful, but its drawbacks are also obvious. It's too difficult to break through. The resources required for each breakthrough are 10 times or even 100 times that of a normal physique. However, Jiang Tian was sitting in the cultivation room, motionless. There was no joy on his face. Instead, it was unusually solemn and troubled. What a waste of the 3 Guizhong cauldron pills. Such a good pill. Jiang Tian shook his head and sighed. Ever since France had surrendered, Jiang Tian had not stepped out of the door. He had been in seclusion for 4 months. He had consumed many precious pills such as the Guizhong cauldron pills, but he still had not broken through to Qi refinement level 8. Although he was on the verge of a breakthrough, there was still a fine line separating him from it. It's useless to consume more Guizhong cauldron pills. It's a waste. I might as well leave it to Qing'er and the others. In his previous life, although Jiang Tian had never cultivated the gung metal divine body, he had cultivated it for 10,000 years and was very knowledgeable, so he had some understanding of it. There is only one kind of pill that can break through that barrier: the Xingyang Dragon Tiger Golden Pill. The main ingredient of this pill was the Xingyang grass. However, the Xingyang grass required very strict conditions to grow. It needed to be nourished by the spirit qi of heaven and earth. It was rare even in the cultivation world, let alone on Earth. He had plundered many treasures in the past, but he had never found such a rare herb. Before he went into seclusion, he had gathered all the disciples of the faction and showed them the pictures of the Xingyang grass. He asked them to search the world and gather information. But so far there was no valuable information. It was also because he was at his wits' end that Jiang Tian held on to a glimmer of hope and swallowed 3 returning center-crowning heavenly pills in succession, as well as many other pills refined from Winchim grass. But it turned out that Jiang Tian had underestimated the difficulty of this breakthrough. He was still stuck. "Master Kong, Tang Guizhu requests to see you." Suddenly, Sasaki Aisha walked in and bowed respectfully. In the faction, she was not only the head of the Reward and Punishment Hall, but also the head of the faction. She used to be a senior member of the Cherry Blossom Guild. She did everything in an orderly manner, which made Jiang Tian worry less. During the war with France, she controlled the Cherry Blossom Guild to put pressure on France and did her best. Jiang Tian was finally willing to teach her a set of swordsmanship, which made her even more grateful and loyal. "Oh, Elder Tang, why is he here? Let him in." Jiang Tian was slightly surprised. Not all of Jiang Tian's allies had come to Sidonie, such as Su Jinlei and his daughter Qing Qingyi and the others. First, the Jiang family still had some assets in Jinling that needed to be dealt with. Second, it was convenient for them to protect Jiang Zhixing. As for the older generation figures like Elder Tang, most of them chose to stay in Huaxia to enjoy their old age because of their old age and reluctance to leave their homeland. After Tang Guizhu came in, he bowed and said excitedly, "Master Kong, on my way here, Sidonie is filled with green trees, clean air, blue sky and white clouds. It's pleasing to the eye. Also, there are many skyscrapers, the economy is booming and the people live and work in peace. It's much more developed and beautiful than Singapore, Hong Kong and Hawaii." He gave a thumbs up and praised, "This old man can't imagine that just a year ago, this place was still covered in the flames of war. Master Kong is really amazing. Elder Tang, please sit down. It's just a small achievement not worth mentioning. Zhang Tian smiled faintly, lifted the hem of his long robe and sat down opposite Elder Tang. Oh no. Master Kong, you can be said to be a capable minister in times of peace and a hero in times of chaos. Tang Guizhu sipped his tea and praised. With your ability, you can be called the king of a country in times of war. He really admired Zhang Tian. He originally thought that Zhang Tian was only a cultivation genius and an expert, but who knew that he was also good at governing a country? Now, a large number of the world's top 500 companies were rushing to enter Sidoni. There were rows upon rows of skyscrapers and the sea, land and air transportation was unimpeded. The quality of the people was greatly improved and it was very prosperous. Zhang Tian smiled and didn't take it to heart. Back then, when he was in the outer space, he had controlled many cultivation empires. The situation was much more complicated than on Earth, but he still played around. A trace of joy appeared on Tang Guizhu's face and he said, Master Kong, this old man is here to report something. What is it? Zhang Tian asked with a smile. In a few days there will be a sect competition in the back mountain of Wudong, and Ling Long may take over the position of sect master. Tang Guizhu said with a hint of pride, Ling Long wants to invite you to watch the competition. This girl is quite capable. She actually became the sect master of the ancient Wudong that has been passed down for hundreds of years. Good news, I'll go and take a look. Zhang Tian nodded slightly and smiled. Now he had defeated France and displayed his powerful military strength. Many leaders of big countries were afraid and couldn't come back to their senses. In a short period of time, no one would dare to provoke Sidoni. Anyway, it was difficult to break through in the sect, so it was better to go to Wuxia and take a look. Maybe he would encounter some opportunities. Chapter 667. Master Kong, Ling Long will be very happy if you come personally. Tang Guizhu was overjoyed. Suddenly Zhang Tian frowned and said, That's right. Ling Long is going to be a disciple. Won't this violate the rules of the Wudang sect? Many cultivation sects treated the inheritance of martial arts as top secret and were very strict in selecting disciples. Moreover, one must pass the test of being a servant, an outer disciple, an inner disciple, an elite disciple, and make great contributions to the sect. Only then would one have the chance to take over the position of the sect leader. Tang Linglong had only joined the Wudang sect for a little more than a year. How could she become the sect leader so quickly? Master Kong, don't worry. Tang Guizhu shook his head and said, Tang Linglong didn't hide her cultivation. You'll know when the Wudang sect leader takes her in. However, they don't know that Ling Long is your disciple. They even hid my identity. Zhang Tian felt that something was wrong. He frowned and said, Elder Tang, let's keep a low profile. Don't tell the ancient Wudang sect that I'm going. Let our own people know. This old man understands. Elder Tang hurriedly agreed. Then I'll make some preparations. Let's go back together. Zhang Tian also left as soon as he said so. After making arrangements for the sect, he planned to return to China with Tang Guizhu. I also want to go out for a walk. Bring me along. Zhang Qianlei also came up to Zhang Tian with a cheeky smile when he heard that Zhang Tian was going back for a trip. Zhang Tian could only nod and agree. The three of them rushed to the airport and boarded Zhang Tian's private plane. The plane would take off from Sidoni, refuel in Singapore, and finally land at Hubei Province's Hankow International Airport. Now that Sidoni had convenient transportation, there were many flights to Wuxia. The Boeing 737 that Zhang Tian took was also a private plane that the Zhang family had just bought for Zhang Tian. It could take off at any time and was very convenient. After several hours of flight, Zhang Tian, Tang Guizhu, and Zhang Qianlei arrived at the Hankow Airport. They rested for the night before heading to Wudong. In Hubei Province, Zhang Tian also had old friends. The most conspicuous one was Zhu Zimu from Shenong School. However, Zhang Tian was keeping a low profile this time and did not disturb him. Elder Tang's bodyguard Xiao Wei had been waiting for a long time with a car. After that, little Wei drove Zhang Tian and the others to Shiyan City. Qianlei, I have a bad feeling about this. In the car, Zhang Tian frowned. What's wrong? Zhang Qianlei asked casually, wearing a trendy Armani suit and a cigar in his mouth. He looked like a local tycoon. Wudong is a semi-hidden sect. They are even more powerful than your Celestial Master sect. The more Zhang Tian thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. He frowned and said, Although Ling Long is talented, she has just joined the sect. She is still inexperienced. Why would they give the position of the sect leader to her so easily? I don't agree with the first sentence, but I agree with the second sentence. Zhang Qianlei frowned and said. Chen Onping, the leader of Wudong sect. This old man is quite sinister and cunning. He has always had a bad reputation. Well, Qianlei, let's hide our identities this time and wait and see what happens. Jiang Tian said telepathically and formed a spell. Suddenly he turned into a tall and strong middle-aged man in his 30s. It was Elder Tang's bodyguard, Xiao Wei. I am my dear mother. Xiao Wei was even more stunned when he saw this. His hands and feet were stiff and he almost drove the car into the quarantine zone. Well, let's see what tricks Chen Onping has up his sleeve. Zhang Qianlei's hands trembled as he formed a spell. He was so tired that he huffed and puffed. Finally his face wriggled and changed his appearance. At the side, Elder Tang was dumbfounded. By the way, Brother Lei, I don't think you need to waste your cultivation to change your appearance. Jiang Tian said suddenly. What? Zhang Qianlei was puzzled. Jiang Tian shook his head and sighed. The legacy of the Celestial Master sect is about to be cut off. All that's left is a dojo. It's become a tourist attraction. Not many people know you. Damn, you need to change your bad habit of having a sharp tongue. Zhang Qianlei vomited blood when he heard Jiang Tian's words. Wudong sect was a semi-hidden sect that focused on cultivation. However, they also had some businesses in the secular world. In order to welcome the families of the disciples who came to watch the sect tournament, they set up a reception area in a 5-star hotel in Danjianka City at the foot of Wudong Mountain. They stepped into the hotel and let Xiao Wei leave. Tang Guizhu led Jiang Tian and Xiao Wei to a presidential suite and knocked on the door. Elder Tang, you're here. Immediately, a cold-looking girl with a hot body in a Daoist robe opened the door. She looked happy and bowed. He looks familiar. Jiang Tian looked at the girl's face, especially her full breasts. He suddenly felt that this girl looked familiar, but he could not recall who she was. Elder Tang, are these the only two who came with you? The girl in the Daoist robe glanced at Zhang Qianlei and Jiang Tian and looked disappointed. That's right. Elder Tang chuckled and introduced, Menghan, these are my bodyguards, Xiao Wei and Xiao Zhang. Lingling's parents are very busy with work and did not have time to come over. They let me represent them. Lin Menghan? Hearing Elder Tang call her that, Jiang Tian suddenly remembered the girl's identity. This girl was the former captain of the criminal investigation team of the Su Province Police Department, the big-breasted but brainless Lin Menghan. She disobeyed orders to investigate his relationship with the Nie family's murder case and even tried to arrest him with a gun. Xu Wei and Secretary Yu bumped into her and she was suspended. Since then, Jiang Tian had not heard any news about her. It turned out that she had joined Wu Dang sect. Senior Tang is a disciple. I heard that she has a very powerful master. Where's he? Lin Menghan asked with a smile. That master of his is like a wild crane, an otherworldly expert. His whereabouts are elusive. Elder Tang shook his head helplessly and said, ever since he taught Lingling a skill, he has not appeared again. Lin Menghan's face flashed with disappointment and then she forced a smile and said, all right, you can check in first. When everyone arrives in the afternoon, we will go to the back of Wu Dang sect together. Remember, do not act on your own. There is a concealment array there. You won't be able to find the entrance. After Elder Tang left, Lin Menghan walked into the presidential suite next door and said to a beautiful girl, Senior Xun, Kong Teichu did not come. What? He did not come? Nie Xueman gritted her teeth and said, we set up a trap to kill Kong Teichu. To avenge the Nie family. Who would have thought that he would be a coward? Maybe he is afraid. Lin Menghan sneered and said, our investigation team has not been peaceful. Our outer sect intelligence group has investigated that he has not been peaceful these years. He killed Hao Hongmei and Bai Tianlei, destroyed White Emperor City, offended a Mei Sword sect's Hao Taichong, and also killed many Dian Song disciples on Mount Everest. This guy is so cunning. Nie Xueman said with disdain. His cultivation should be at the early stage of the immortal stage. Let's not talk about other things. Even our master Onping Daoist would not be able to defeat him. She said angrily, but I did not expect him to be so smart. He ran away with a lot of his assets. In May, I went to Jinling and Yanjing to kill a few of his family members for revenge. But I could not find anyone. I heard that his father is still in Jinling. Lin Menghan suggested. Killing his father would be very painful for him. I really want to see his angry and helpless face. Nieshiaman said. His father is still in Jinling. But this old man is in a high position. He is protected by Su Zhenlei and Su Ruoqing. There are also many armed guards around him. I did not even have the chance to kill him. Where did he go? We are not afraid of him. Shiji, you are already at the peak of transcendent state. You might not be able to kill him, but you should be able to kill his mother and father. Lin Menghan suggested. I don't know. We have not found anything yet. Nieshuaman said angrily. His henchmen in the country have all left. The rest of them have also changed their names. We can't find them. Only Tang Linglong thought that she was smart. She changed her name to Tang Lingling. She wanted to help Jiang Tian get cultivation resources so that he could join our faction. How would I know? We've already investigated Jiang Tian's background thoroughly. She is walking right into our trap. This time, we have painstakingly set up a trap to kill Kong Teichu and get the incomplete map of the ruins of immortality. Who would have thought that he would be a coward and not show up at all? How abominable. That bastard is really cunning. But what should we do now? Lin Minghan's face was filled with anger as she asked gloomily. If the soft approach doesn't work, we will use the hard approach. Nieshuaman pondered for a while. Then a cold light flashed in her eyes and she said coldly. We will announce Tang Linglong's real identity during the faction grand competition tomorrow. We will use her as a hostage to force Kong Teichu to come to Wu Dang. When the time comes, the leaders of the major factions will gang up on him and kill him. That will work. Lin Menghan gritted her teeth and said, Kong Teichu has always claimed that he would protect his disciple if he joined my faction. I would like to see how he is going to protect his disciple. Alright, you can continue to entertain the guests. I have to go back to my faction and report this to my master. Nieshuaman suddenly got up and left the hotel in a hurry. I knew it. I knew that the Wu Dang faction was up to no good. I didn't expect them to set up such a terrifying trap. In a room on the 3rd floor of the hotel, Jiang Tian, who was meditating with his legs crossed, retracted his divine sense. A cold smile appeared on his face as he murmured, Well, today I will go even though I know that there is a tiger in the mountain. Let's see how powerful the ancient Wu Dang faction in Wuxia is. At noon they had a simple meal. In the afternoon a group of people gathered at the hotel plaza and took a Jinbei bus to Wu Dang Mountain. In the car there was no lack of tycoons with hundreds of millions of assets as well as some martial arts families. All of them had great backgrounds and extraordinary identities. However, they were proud to send their disciples to Wu Dang faction. From their conversation, Qin Fan learned that Wu Dang faction was quite powerful. They had 500 to 600 disciples and more than 100 transcendent masters. If these people came out of the mountain, they would cause a huge stir. Hey, you old geezer. You should have come alone. Why did you bring 2 lowly servants with you? After learning about Jiang Tian's identity from Lin Menghan, a rich lady in a mink coat sneered at Jiang Tian. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.